Hello, so like all the other what ifs, this isn't mine, it's a fanfic. The link is the description if you want to check it out. Anyways, let's get into it.
Hello?
Anime demigod.
Here?
Naruto's power. Name, Naruto Uzumaki, Namikaze, will be declared after making Chunin. Stats. Ninjutsu, Mid-Sunin. Taijutsu, High Jounin. Genjutsu, Low Chunin, can only break Genjutsu. Kenjutsu, Mid-Genin. Speed, High Cage. Chakra control, Low Umbu. Elemental manipulation. Lightning, Mastered. Wind, Mastered. Water, Mid-Genin. Special abilities. Keikei Genkai, Titan's Defense, 3 levels. Level 1, defends against all regular blades, won't make them snap immediately but will bend them away. Chakra enhanced blades will take strong blows to break Naruto's skin. Level 2, breaks all regular blades. Chakra enhanced blades cannot break through, unless enhanced with lightning. Level 3, breaks all regular blades. Chakra enhanced blades will eventually break as well. At level 3, can also reduce damage taken from certain low-level jutsu. Weaknesses, Lightning Chakra. Divine Judgment, activates only when Naruto and Susanoo are extremely pissed/offended at the actions of someone or simply a person's existence, and grants Naruto a brief moment of extreme power that usually culminates in a supremely strong jutsu. Ranten, granted by Susanoo, the Storm God. Naruto currently knows only 2 jutsu for this class of jutsu as they are incredibly difficult to perform, does not include the Ranten, Kamiakari no Hurricane. Storm Release, Hurricane of Divine Wrath, as that is a Divine Judgment jutsu only. Warning. Each room for the Chunin exams has a different test. This is specialized to Naruto's room only. Exams, and Nibi's deal. Naruto smirked as his team received their folder of information, his mind already going over possible ways to get more information. His smirk widened into a foxy smile as he figured out a way to do just that. He turned to Ibiki and said, "Man," nearly face-palmed himself. He turned to the Chunin and whispered, "That dem brat is going to breeze through this exam like it's a stroll in the park." He shook his head and waited for the 20 teams to receive their packets. Once everyone had, he reapplied his hard-ass torture bastard mask and smirked devilishly at the assembled genin. "Alright, you maggots, one last piece of information," he roared at them, which quickly got their attention. "There are 5 special clues distributed among you, with a total of 4 full clues that will practically hand you the scrolls. Good luck, grunts, you're going to need it," he said with a smirk that Hikari could be proud of. Naruto smirked and grabbed the packet, happy that he had made his way to the back of the room. He silently made several kage bunshin and grabbed the extra folders in their hands. He held up the 8 fake folders and waved them around. "I'm giving out our clue if you trade me yours. First 8 to come get it," he said, with Shino raising an eyebrow before his bugs informed him of the switch and Ino just shaking her head as she had long ago stopped questioning Naruto's strange abilities. Several teams looked at him like he was crazy until the sound team leader, a man wrapped in bandages, smirked. "How about we just take it from you," he said darkly. Naruto sweat dropped and pointed to the angry-looking Ibiki. "Don't you remember the rules, numbnuts? No fighting allowed." "I'm just trying to be civil," he said with mock hurt in his voice. A female waterfall ninja with mint green hair and orange eyes walked up to Naruto and handed him her folder. "I want that back when you're done, Oka my boy," she said with a smirk. Naruto took a moment to observe the Jinhuriki before him, his surrogate sister in pain. She wore a white tank top and white skirt, her eyes held a deep sadness but also seemed to hold genuine glee when she looked at Naruto. She also had a large oval red thing on her back, but Naruto didn't know what it was for. Luckily for Naruto, Susanoo had taken the time to inform his charge of all the Jinhuriki and their different quirks. Now normally, Fu hated humanity, but her Biju, much like Nibi, had informed her of Naruto's recent rise and she appeared to be both curious about him, and happy to see him. Naruto smirked and nodded, quickly taking down the offered clue before handing her a shadow clone copy. As he handed it to her, however, his eyes flickered to hers and then back down before letting go. Curious about his actions, as few people ever looked her in the eyes, she opened the folder as she made her way back to her teammates, who she could barely stand. She smirked mentally, however, as she saw not only Naruto's special clue, but the other 3 giving her team an edge. She would have to thank the Okamai boy later for this helpful information, and question him as to why he helped her out. Naruto mentally smirked as well. He had already gained the extra clues thanks to Shino's bugs and his clones. He had decided to give his Jinhiriki sister a hand and was happy to see the slight skip in her step as she grabbed her teammates and disappeared. He handed out 2 more folders, this time with only his team's clue, before realizing everyone else had disappeared. He chuckled and looked at Ibiki. "This is gonna be fun, Scarface," he said. Ibiki shook his head. "That it will, Gaki. That it will. Now get out of here. I know you already got the clues," he said, gaining chuckles from the team in front of him. Naruto stood up and shrugged as he backed his way out the door. "Come on, Ibiki-chan, you give me too much credit," he said. Ibiki just chucked an eraser at him as he disappeared out the door. "Damn Gaki, he's too smart for his own good," Ibiki said, shaking his head again. Training Ground 10, after packet distribution. Naruto smirked at his teammates and opened the packet to read the information. The basic information for everyone was that the city itself was a neutral zone. If anyone was found fighting or arguing, you would be kicked out immediately. It had information on the different districts of Konoha, with a major keep-out sign for the clan district, and that the area was being patrolled by Umbu so no one could gain any defensive information about Konoha. However, it did tell you where the training grounds were and that your objective was not in the city proper. It also gave little tidbits about each training ground and what could be found inside them. Naruto and his team nodded at the basic information before putting together the clues and reading it. Some are weak, others are strong, you must choose who. Clue 1. The fire burns bright when you work together. Clue 2. A test you shall face, with red eyes. Clue 3. Hero's memory you shall honor. Clue 4. Fallen warriors, you must gather. Clue 5. Naruto's team silently went over the clues and tried to work them together in their heads. Naruto was the first to speak up. "Okay, so let's go over this one by one. The first clue seems to say that we need to choose who is strong and who is weak," he said. Shino nodded. "Logically, Naruto would be strong, followed by me, and then by Ino-san, in most situations," he said. Ino and Naruto nodding, as they both knew it to be true. Ino smirked at the next one. The fire burns bright when you work together. Fire is capitalized. And the basics of Konoha is our will of fire, which really stems off of our teamwork. The second clue is meant to tell us that this test is about teamwork, she said. Naruto nodded in happiness. "Good, we're getting somewhere." The next one, "We have to face a test, but it has something to do with red eyes," he said. Shino brought his hand up to his chin as his team quietly contemplated this puzzle. "If my memory serves me, Kurane-sensei has red eyes, and the only other red eyes could be a Sharingan," he said. The rest of his team nodded in agreement. "Okay, then we need to be ready to face Genjutsu and / or a ninjutsu master," Naruto said, getting nods from his 2 teammates. The team looked at the last 2 clues for a moment before Ino spoke up. "I think the last 2 are meant to be viewed together. Hero's memory and fallen warriors are awfully close, don't ya think?" she asked. Naruto grabbed them and put them together before nodding. "Indeed. Let's see, we have to honor our heroes and gather our fallen warriors. Where can we do both?" he asked. Ino pondered for a second before saying, "Well, what about the Hokage Monument? It holds our greatest heroes," she suggested. Naruto shook his head. "That's true, but it doesn't hold true to the fallen warriors, as there were far more dead shinobi than just the Hokages," he replied. Shino silently looked over the basic information again as his teammates debated. "Naruto, Training Ground 7. The Hero's Stone," he said, causing both his teammates to stop and blink at him olishly before rushing over to meet him. Shino pointed to the small map. "The Hero's Stone is where we put the names of all of our fallen shinobi. It is a place to honor our heroes and to gather the memories of our fallen warriors," he stated. Naruto and Ino smiled. "Good work, Shino. Let's get ready to move out," Naruto ordered as they gathered their things. Training Ground 7, 10 minutes later. Naruto looked to his team, who nodded, before they all landed in the clearing. They didn't drop into a fighting stance or anything, but they did keep themselves very aware of their surroundings. They slowly made their way to the Hero's Monument, assuming that's where the scroll, or hopefully scrolls, would be. Soon enough they reached the stone and Naruto silently motioned for them to keep watch whilst he checked the stone for any scrolls. His team nodded and Naruto turned back to the stone. He studied it for a good 3 minutes when he noticed foreign chakra entering his system. Genjutsu. Shit, he thought as he silently pulsed his chakra and broke the illusion surrounding him and his teammates. "It would seem we are not alone here," Shino stated as he eyed the surrounding forest. Naruto nodded, good observation, but it won't do any good if we can't find her. Send out your Kikaichu and I'll make a few Kage Bunshin to search. Ino, be ready to fight, he whispered to his team, who nodded in response. Naruto quickly made 20 clones, who immediately hunged into several wild animals and crept into the bush while Shino's bugs spread out in an attempt to catch their red-eyed opponent. Naruto winced as he felt 3 of his clones be dispelled. She's out there. 20 meters to the left and moving, he informed his team. Shino nodded and his bugs swarmed to the area, but were too late to catch their elusive prey. Naruto focused on his clones' memories and attempted to guide Shino, but their opponent seemed to always disappear before they could reach the area until there was only 1 clone left. Naruto began to grow frustrated until he noticed that Ino's form smelled different than a few seconds ago. He growled and motioned to Shino, who nodded as well before Naruto's sword split the faker in half. Unfortunately for Naruto and Shino, it was nothing more than a clone. Naruto cursed and Shino frowned before turning as they heard struggling. On the west side of the clearing, coming through the trees, was Kurane with their female teammate. Shino's bugs buzzed angrily. I suggest you return our teammate to us, Kurane-sensei. It would be most detrimental to your team should you be harmed in this exam, he stated. Kurane frowned. I'm the one in charge here, Genin. I have your teammate and I will kill her if you don't drop out of this exam right now, she said confidently. Ino growled softly and locked eyes with Naruto before smirking. Yeah right, I bet you couldn't pull that blade even if you wanted to, she said. Kurane's frown deepened and she glared down at her captive, never noticing Naruto's smirk as he flickered slightly. I hate fangirls. So pretentious, always assuming their knight in shining armor will save them. Pathetic, she said with disgust in her voice. She was quite surprised when Ino's voice sounded from Naruto's previous position. Good thing I'm not a fangirl then, although I don't mind being saved every now and again, she said with a smirk as Kurane stared at her. She didn't have time to react as Naruto spoke from in her guard. You really should pay more attention to small chakra spikes. Kawarami is such a useful jutsu, he stated as his skin turned gray and he elbowed Kurane in the stomach. Kurane's kunao scrapped across Naruto's skin before shattering into a million pieces as she stumbled back. Naruto stood and glared down at her slightly. You are going to give us the scrolls now. I won't abandon my teammates, and they won't abandon me, he said confidently as his team immediately took their places beside him. Ino smirked from beside her teammate. This whole test was to see if we would work together and to test our information gathering skills. Those clues really did make it easy to figure everything out, though, she added to her teammate's statement. Kurane chuckled, good job. I never had any doubt you'd pass, Naruto-kun, especially since Anko-chan is so in love with you. She'd kick your ass from here to Timbuktu if you failed, she said smirking. Naruto paled slightly and sweated as he realized his mates would do just that if he didn't get promoted. In any case, well done. You figured out all the clues. The next exam will be held tomorrow at 8 a.m. Be sure to be prepared, she said as she handed the team 2 scrolls and disappeared. Unknown location, that night. Orochimaru growled softly at the predicament he was in. He could no longer apply his cursed seal to anyone he chose. He had to beat some golden-haired brat to continue his plans. He glanced around his base and scoffed. The great Orochi no Yamada, forced to become a human to hide in holes in order to keep himself, and his plans, safe from prying eyes. His head snapped up as his trusted as a human could be, puppet Kabuto stepped into the room. Kabuto bowed to Orochimaru and pushed his glasses up. Orochimaru-sama. We have found the man you are looking for, he stated happily. Orochimaru smirked in triumph. Well, he said. Kabuto bowed his head again. He is a genin of Konoha by the name of Naruto Uzumaki, and he happens to be. Kabuto never got to finish as the seat Orochimaru was on crumbled to dust under his fists. You mean to tell me that the Jin hierarchy of the Kyuubi is stopping me? Damn that infernal bitch. I will get her for meddling all those years ago and for her actions now as well. He roared as his eyes glowed with power. Kabuto backed away in fear. Go now, we must make special arrangements for my opponent. Orochimaru said evilly as his eyes took a mischievous glint. Kabuto bowed nervously and quickly exited, lest he endure the wrath of his lord. That damn bitch. And I just know she called her old friend Amaterasu to help her out. Since I still have the Kusanagi, she can legally track me down. Damn. Yes, I must prepare to kill her and take her little pet out as well, he thought as he began to plan for his invasion. Namikaze Estates, next morning. Naruto sighed as he sat down for breakfast. Kushina had taken to cooking for the family as her way of getting in good with the girls, not that they were complaining. It had sorta helped to ease the tension, but she had also been forcing Naruto and, by extension, the girls to eat healthier. She kept saying that it wasn't good to let themselves gorge on ramen or whatever else they liked just because they could. Hikari and Anko were starting to get overprotective about what Kushina was doing, seeing it as more along the lines of what a mother would do, in their eyes. The breakfast went quietly as he had already informed his lovers, and potential lovers, about what was going on. Since Kushina cooked, the other girls would take turns doing the dishes, and this time, it was Yujito's and Hana's turn. So said girls began their task as Naruto went to grab his coat for the exams. Kushina walked up to him and smiled. "Got everything?" she asked, getting a nod from the blonde-haired teen. "Food," a nod. "Water," a nod. "Ceiling supplies," another nod. "Extra clothes," an annoyed nod. "Shampoo and soap," she asked again. Naruto rolled his eyes. "I have everything, mother. I'll be fine, quit worrying so much," he said. Hikari and Anko narrowed their eyes at the mother part, but the other girls noticed the sarcasm dripping from his words. Kushina chuckled nervously, scratching the back of her head. "Sorry. Just don't want you to be caught unawares," she said sheepishly. Naruto chuckled and shook his head. "I'm leaving, see y'all later," he said happily as he waved goodbye. "Bye Naruto-kun," chorused his girls, allowing Naruto to leave unhindered. Hikari and Anko both glanced at each other before turning to glare at Kushina, who was no longer there as she was out the door and headed for shopping. The other three girls noticed their actions and shared a look before sighing sadly. It would seem that things were going to get worse before they got better. Forest of Death, 10 minutes later. Naruto arrived and quickly made his way over to Shino, who was the only other member of his team currently present. He smiled brightly at his teammate and friend. "Yo Shino, how's it going?" he asked. Shino inclined his head in greeting. "Just fine Naruto." "No new information on the exams yet," he replied as Naruto opened his mouth to ask that very question. Naruto scratched the back of his head nervously. "Man, you figured out how to read me. Now I can't hide things from you," he half-whined. Shino smirked, but that disappeared as he noticed Naruto's own foxy smirk. "So how's it going between you and Hinata?" he asked knowingly. Shino's cheeks held a light pink tone as he considered lying to his friend, before dismissing that as he knew Naruto would catch him and said lie. "We have been doing fine. Hinata wishes to get to know me better and take a little time to get over your refusal before we become serious. However, she has allowed me to take her to dinner once a week," he said with a soft smile at the second part. Naruto smiled widely. "Great to hear it Shino," he said, genuinely happy for his friend. The two male members of Team 10 turned together as they heard Ino shout a hello to them from the entrance to the clearing. Naruto smiled and waved back, whilst Shino settled for a clearly visible bow of his head to greet his female teammate. Ino promptly walked up to them and smiled before her eyes started shifting through the other various genin there. Naruto smirked at her smarts and was already observing those in his view. He caught sight of Fu glancing at him curiously, Sasuke staring at him broodily, and Kiba glancing at every other girl and assessing their female looks on a scale of 1 to 10, and Chuji eating his chips like normal. He sighed and waited for another 5 minutes before a cloud of smoke attracted everyone's attention to the gate near the forest. As it cleared, everyone beheld a lazy-looking, black-haired, smoking Jounin who stared at the genin like they weren't worth his time. "All right everyone settle down," he said, his cigarette never leaving his mouth. "For this exam, you will have 5 days to traverse training ground 44 and reach the tower in the middle. In addition, you must also have 4 scrolls for your team, 1 earth, 1 heaven, 1 hell, and 1 limbo. If you are not in the tower in exactly 120 hours from the start of the test, you fail. If any of your teammates are dead, you fail. If you do not have the 4 scrolls you must obtain, you fail. In this exam, fighting and death are expected. If you cannot deal with this, leave now," he said. The more nervous genin began to look around and question whether they should be here or not. Naruto, himself scoffed, but was curious about one thing, so he raised his hand. The Jounin, who still hadn't given his name, pointed to him. "How are we to obtain the 4 scrolls and what's your name?" he asked calmly, surprising many of the genin there. The Jounin chuckled. "In reverse order, I am Asuma Sarutobi. As for the scrolls, you already have 2. You must obtain the other 2 from another team of course. However, there is one stipulation that we have decided to add this year, he said, getting many of the teams to begin murmuring. In the interest of promoting inter-village cooperation, every team must join with another team that is not of their own village, he said, gaining outcries of many people there, until he blasted them with ki, shutting them up. However, you cannot team up with a nation that is hostile to your own, namely, leaf cannot team with stone, and rain with sand, etc., he said before waving his hand and saying, "Get to it." Naruto frowned at the rules but understood that it was more to simulate working with unknown shinobi on a joint mission, rare as they are, and to get the job done as quickly and efficiently as possible. The area was immediately abuzz with people trying to determine their teams when Naruto noticed a certain green-haired girl dragging her team behind her. She marched right up to him and said, "Looks like I get to pay you back for that info. Name's Fu." "No last name," she said, extending her hand. Naruto smirked. "Naruto Uzumaki," he replied, shaking her hand. He motioned behind him and each his teammates nodded their heads. "Shino Abarame, and Ino Yamanksa," he said, with Fu giving them wary looks but nodding as well. She pointed to the rather plain-looking, brown-haired, genin on the right. "This guy is Watashi Adame," she said, getting a huff from the man as he obviously didn't want to be here. She just ignored him and motioned to the red-headed, and solemn, genin to her left, "And he is Himate Urano. We can talk specialties in the forest," she said. Naruto nodded. "Sounds good," he replied as they waited for Asuma to show back up. Nearly 10 minutes later everyone had finally paired up, although there were too many leaf teams, so teams 7 and 8 were paired together in the interests of preserving lives. Asuma appeared in his smoke shunshin again and smirked at the genin. "All right. Now that everyone is paired up, the proctors will be giving you your gate numbers. Do try not to die," he said, smirking fearfully at the end before disappearing. Naruto just shook his head and waited for the Chunin. Soon enough their group was assigned gate number 23, which coincidentally was where Naruto's lab was located, causing a chuckle to escape Naruto and Shino's lips, and for the Taki genin to stare at them curiously. Forest of Death, 10 minutes after Chunin exam start. Naruto chuckled as he motioned the group to the forest floor and his team immediately jumped down. The Taki team followed, albeit reluctantly. "Okay, we are approximately half a day's run from the tower. We need to know each other's abilities and what scrolls we have," he said. He got nods from everyone and smiled at Fu. "We have an earth and a heaven scroll. I am a seals master, a chakra powerhouse, and am pretty much proficient in everything else. I also have a Keikei Genkai, but you don't need any more info than that," he said. Shino nodded next and began his own explanation. "I am from the Abarame clan. My taijutsu is rather good, my clan jutsu are my strength, and my companions can drain people of their chakra as well as acting as scouts for our group," he said monotonously. The other genin looked at Ino expectingly, who sighed. "I am from the Yamanaka clan. We specialize in interrogation. I have a small arsenal of useful jutsu. My taijutsu is about the same as Shino's, but I can use quite a few genjutsu as well, although they are minor ones," she said. Naruto turned his gaze to Fu, who silently measured up his team before sighing and nodding her own consent. "My taijutsu is my strength. I have enough strength to level a boulder in one punch. My ninjutsu are limited, but powerful, and we have an earth and a limbo scroll," she explained, before nudging Watashi. Watashi glared at the leaf nin. "I'm a genjutsu user. No other related skills," he said harshly. Fu glared at him but he just scoffed and turned away. Himate sighed. "I'm a medic nin. My main attacks are chakra scalpel and I don't think you need to know anything else," he said, a little less guarded than his teammate. Naruto nodded. "Okay, then we need another heaven scroll, a limbo scroll, and we both need hell scrolls," he said before turning to Shino. "I'm gonna send out some Kage Bunshin, can you keep a closer eye out?" he asked, getting a nod from his friend. Naruto stood and walked a short distance away before making nearly 100 clones who immediately jumped into the trees. The Taki team looked at him in shock. Naruto turned around and sweat dropped at their looks. "What? I said I was a chakra powerhouse," he said. Shino looked to Naruto. "Should we continue to move, or remain here?" he asked. Watashi frowned. "Why are you asking him?" he asked. Shino looked to the discontent man. "Naruto has spent many hours training in this forest, he knows the terrain quite well," he replied. The Taki team and Ino were surprised by this information and looked to Naruto for more information. Naruto sighed. "Yes, I train in here. In any case, that's not important. We should start heading in." I can direct us to easy teams or avoid strong ones, he replied as he looked to the treetops, causing the rest of his group to stand and stretch quickly as well. Naruto waved a hand forward and shot into the trees, followed quickly by the rest of the shinobi. The group of allied shinobi silently made their way through the trees for another 3 hours before Naruto stopped them. Okay, my clones have mostly dispelled. There's a team about 10 minutes from us that is currently arguing about their scrolls, so I say we sneak up on them, use some genjutsu and misdirection to confuse them, and make them tire themselves out fighting one another while Shino drains them of their chakra. Any other suggestions? He asked, looking at the group. Naruto's team shook their heads. They were used to following Naruto and were happy to use his plan. The 2 male members of the Taki team looked at one another, while Fu just nodded in assent to his plan. Watashi, ever the malcontent jerk, spoke up. Why do I have to do all the work? He asked harshly. Naruto, tired of playing nice, growled, I'm not asking you to show me your abilities or anything, and Ino can use genjutsu as well. I am simply offering a plan to minimize threats to our person and maximize our potential to pass, he said sternly. Watashi opened his mouth, but Fu shot him a deathly glare. Just go along with it. It's a solid plan. He helped us in the first exam, and we need to pass, she growled out. Watashi glared back at Fu but didn't argue and ground out a, fine, while Himate just sighed and shook his head. Naruto nodded, okay, they are to the west. Let's move out, he said and jumped back into the trees, his group soon following. They made their way west and, true to Naruto's word, then ran into a Sound/Rain duo team, who were still fighting like spoiled children. A bandaged genin from Sound stepped forward menacingly to what appeared to be the leader of the yellow pajama-wearing team. I'm telling you that we should just hunt down some other teams until we get the scrolls we need, he said with an edge in his voice. The rain-leading genin growled and stepped up to the bandaged genin, and I'm saying that we should lay traps and wait near the tower, he yelled back, his team subtly preparing for a fight. The Sound genin growled back, your plan isn't a surefire thing. What if no one comes this way? What if was it here for 3 days and no one comes? What will we do then? He asked, waving his gauntlet in the air. Naruto looked to Watashi and nodded, who grudgingly began his hand signs. Ino quietly wove her own genjutsu and decided to ensure that the other genin were definitely sold on the idea of the other team screwing with them. Watashi targeted the rain genin first, and the assembled hidden ninja smirked in glee as they watched the rain suddenly stand still, until Watashi grunted softly and allowed his genjutsu to break. The rain genin blinked before rage appeared on their faces. You dare try to trick us? I'll kill you, the leader said as he backed up and pulled out an umbrella. The Sound genin, obviously confused, were silent until their supposed comrade opened the umbrella wide and yelled, Kage Senbon no Jutsu, Shadow Senbon no Jutsu, as several hundred Senbon streaked towards the surprised genin. The rather plain-looking man from the Sound team scowled and raised his hands yelling, Zankyukyakuha. Extreme decapitating airwaves, and the Senbon were blasted away from the Sound genin. You bastards wanna play? Fine. Zankyuha, decapitating airwave, he yelled, blasting one of the rain ninjas into a tree with a sickening crack, a sure sign that the boy's spine had been broken. The other 2 rain ninja growled and opened their umbrellas, blasting the Sound genin with more Senbon. Unfortunately, the man with the tubes in his arm was unable to charge his attack again, and while the 2 males were able to dodge, or block with his gauntlet in the mummy's case, the female was not as fortunate. She was hit with several Senbon and crashed to the ground in a cry of pain. The leading rain genin chuckled darkly, when we are done maybe we can use that bitch's body before she dies of our poison, he said. The hidden leaf ninja watched in disgust as the 2 male members of her team just looked at her with disdain in their eyes. She's so worthless, the mummy said before throwing his hand forward and watching the 2 rain ninja grabbed their ears and screamed in pain. My melody arm controls sound waves and can destroy your eardrums from the inside out, he said confidently. You have lost this fight. Naruto looked to Shino, who nodded, and he smirked before landing in front of the 2 Sound genin, and now unconscious rain shinobi. That is correct, however you are the ones who have lost this fight, he said. The 2 Sound genin were about to reply when they fell face first to the ground of chakra exhaustion and passed out. Naruto sighed and walked over to the rain genin. When you don't pay attention to your surroundings, you can die, he said as he pulled out the antidote to the poison that they used on the girl. He promptly walked over to the paralyzed girl, who was staring at him with fear in her eyes, and pried her mouth open before giving her the antidote. Behind him, Shino landed and began to rifle through their stuff, looking for scrolls. The other shinobi stayed hidden so as to ensure that no one jumped them. Naruto smiled at the girl and leaned forward. If you want a place to be safe, I'd suggest asking for our Hokage. I'm sure you could seek asylum here, he said warmly as he laid her back down. You should be free of the poison in about 10 minutes. I'd suggest gathering your teammates and fleeing the exam. Your partners aren't going to be happy when they wake back up, he said as he turned to Shino, who nodded, and the two disappeared back into the trees. The two teams traveled back to the clearing they were in before and landed. Shino stepped forward and pulled out 2 Hell Scrolls, a Heaven Scroll, and another Earth Scroll. Naruto cursed. Damn, we still need another Void Scroll, he said. Watashi began to reach for the 2 scrolls his team needed until Ino snatched up all the scrolls and glared at him. Watashi immediately grew angry. Give me those scrolls. We have what we need to pass now, he yelled at her. Fu, Naruto, and Shino swiftly stood in front of her. We can collect our scrolls after we have all that we need. Fu said sternly. Watashi glared at her and Himate tried to stop him, but Watashi shrugged him off. I'm not listening to you anymore. We have what we needed, now be a good little demon bitch and protect us, he yelled. The entire clearing was silent until Watashi suddenly found himself on the wrong end of a chakra-powered punch from Naruto. Watashi created a crater in the enormous tree behind him and stared blearily at Naruto. Talk to her like that again, and I'll rip your fucking head from your shoulders and shove it up your ass. Naruto said in his celestial voice, although it sounded more like a demon's voice. Watashi's eyes rolled into his head and he conked out while Himate stared at Naruto with a slack jaw. Fu was gawking at Naruto, and Ino and Shino were both still pissed at what Watashi said. Naruto turned to Himate. Pick up your teammate. We are heading in. I'll take the last Earth Scroll and find us another Void Scroll, he said. Himate just nodded and picked up the bruised, but still alive, Watashi. The group took to the trees in silence. Several minutes later, Naruto made many more Kage Bunshin and they split off to go find a Void Scroll. They were about 3 hours from the tower when Fu sped up to jump alongside Naruto. She stared at him for a second, still jumping before quietly saying, "Thank you. No one but Shivuki-sama has ever stood up for me before." Shivuki was the leader of Taki and possibly the only human that Fu didn't hate. Naruto glanced at her and smiled softly. We Jinhyuriki need to stick together. I won't allow them to insult you for something out of your control, he replied, his voice warm and soothing. Fu smiled softly back and went back to just jumping silently next to him. It was another hour before one of Naruto's clones dispelled and gave him the image of an older team that had a Void Scroll and needed an Earth Scroll. The clone had promptly set up a meeting place and dispelled to inform his creator of the plan. Naruto held up his hand, stopping the group on the same branch. I've got someone willing to trade a Void Scroll for an Earth Scroll. You guys keep heading in and I'll meet you at the tower, he said. Fu looked to his teammates, who nodded, before looking at Himate, who nodded as well, before voicing her concerns. What if this is a trap? You should have some backup, she said. Naruto smiled at her. I'll be fine, he replied before taking out a tri-pronged kunai and handing it to her. I'll use that to escape if I need to, or to just get there ASAP, he said. Fu looked between the kunai and Naruto for a moment before nodding and then motioning to the others and taking off into the trees. Naruto chuckled and shook his head before heading northeast. It would take nearly 2 hours to reach the meeting point. Sure enough, 2 hours later, Naruto appeared in the small clearing in front of the group of shinobi with leaf headbands. A Hyuga stepped forward. You have the Earth Scroll, he asked. Naruto nodded and pulled it out, before motioning to the Hyuga to do the same. Said Hyuga nodded and pulled out a Void Scroll before activating his Byakugan. It's real, he said, confirming the trade. He tossed the Void Scroll at the same time as Naruto, who smirked cheekily. Great doing business with you, stick in the mud. Later, he said, still smirking as he disappeared in a flash of yellow, leaving a group of gawking genin behind. Same time, Namikaze Estates. Yujito was currently sitting in her room, humming softly to herself as she brushed her hair, and admired the collar Naruto had given her some time ago. While she never wore it outside her room, she had noticed that she had begun to put it on and fantasize about Naruto doing kinky things to her. This was attributed to a few things. First, she had heard of the small marathon of sex between Amaterasu, Naruto, and Hikari, which had spurred her own fantasies about Naruto. Second, Naruto had treated her like a princess, just as he promised, every time he talked with her or just paid attention to her, although he had yet to give her a nickname. Lastly, Nibi had informed Yujito that, because of her being sealed inside of Yujito, that Yujito was going through a type of demonic puberty and that she would need a mate to satisfy her urges soon, or she would fuck anything with a dick, probably within another year. Needless to say, Yujito had started to embrace that she would one day be Naruto's bad cat, and she had every intention of making sure they would both enjoy their time together. Her fears of him paying too much attention to one girl were unfounded, and she found that he spent as much time as he could with each girl. And while, inevitably, some girls had more time, the quality of time spent with Naruto mattered more and not the quantity. She suddenly felt a pull from her seal and came face to face with the familiar plane of her mindscape. However, she was not expecting the blue-haired cat girl who looked almost like her twin excluding the hair to appear before her. She stared in shock until she noticed the two cat tails protruding from her tailbone. "And Nibi-chan?" she asked incredulously. Nibi smirked and grabbed Yujito, rubbing her body against her container zone. "Correct, kitten. I know you are wondering why I'm in this form. It's quite simple. I've never taken a human form before that really suited my fancy, but it seems that yours is a perfect fit. So, hello my twin," she said smiling. Yujito blinked for several seconds in shock before saying, "Wah wait twin? What do you mean?" she asked. Nibi frowned and backed up, her own clothes being the same outfit that Yujito normally wore, but in dark blue. "Well, I was hoping to make a contract with you like Hikari-chan and Naruto-kun did," she said softly. Yujito stood quietly for a moment and Nibi feared she had stepped over a line. "What's the deal, and if you wanna be my twin then you need a new name?" Yujito replied, smiling warmly at her longtime friend, and hopefully a new sister. Nibi squealed and glomped Yujito, shoving her container, and soon sister, into her generous cleavage. "It's real simple Yujito-chan. I'm gonna make you a bloodline like the Inyazukas, but your will be with lions." "Well, that, and I'll give you a lion's tail and ears that will match your hair," she explained happily. Yujito pushed her friend away and thought for a second before realizing why she really wanted out and smirked fearfully. "Okay. But your new name is Kiyomi, and, when I'm done with him, you are to give yourself to Naruto-kun, and sometime you and I need to double team him. Deal?" she asked. Nibi squealed even louder and yelled, "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes," she said happily, glomping her soon-to-be sister. Yujito smirked and hugged her friend back. "Good, then let's do this," she said smiling. Naruto reappeared in front of a fearful Taki duo, a startled Fu, and a rather impressed pair of teammates at one of the entrances to the tower. Watashi leaned over and whispered to his male teammate, "WWWA was that the legendary Y Yellow Flash?" he asked in a scared whisper. Naruto grinned at the scared genin. "Maybe it is, maybe it ain't. You'll just have to guess," he said. The two Taki genin stiffened, but Fu just grinned back at Naruto. Shino sighed and shook his head. "I was unaware you had mastered that technique, Naruto. In any case, that is irrelevant." "Did you get the scroll?" he asked, attempting to ensure that the Taki team would remain as silent as possible. Naruto nodded and spun the void scroll before tossing it to Fu. "There you are, one void scroll. Hope to see you soon," he said, smiling brightly at the orange-eyed Jinhiriki. Fu blushed almost Hinata red from the attention he was giving her and simply nodded, putting her head down and heading off with her team to another gate. Naruto chuckled as his eyes wandered up and down her luscious legs. That's the first time I've ever really ogled a girl that hasn't outright shown an interest in me. Are Hikari and Anko rubbing off on me or something?" he asked himself before shaking his head and opening the scrolls. Iruka appeared before the team and smiled. "Yo. Glad to see you all made it," he said happily. Naruto smiled at one of the few teachers to care about him. "Good to see you too, Iruka-sensei," he said softly. Iruka nodded. "The Hokage informed me about you hiding your skills. I must say, I'm rather impressed. I am sad you had to hide, but happy that you are truly on your way to being a great shinobi," he said, smiling softly at Naruto. Naruto's own smile just widened. "Thank you for your praise, Iruka-sensei, but I believe my team could use a rest," he said. Iruka just nodded and led the way to their team's room before informing them that they had 3 days left to rest and that the cafeteria was 2 floors down. Team 10 quickly set themselves up and took turns using the small provided shower before promptly falling into blissful sleep. With Fu, after splitting with Naruto, Fu was barely able to get her blush under control. "How could I let myself be affected so easily? All he did was focus on me," she thought to herself. "Perhaps it is because he is the first male to show an interest in you," her longtime tenant the Nanbai responded. So I'm just going to be embarrassed every time a guy stares at me lewdly, she asked angrily. The Nanabe sighed, probably not, you loathe most humans, rightfully so I might add, so they would not interest you. I have informed you of that young man's achievements and you have long since considered him as possibly your equal, he replied yet again. Fu stopped for a moment and considered it before nodding and stepping up to the gate, which she had now arrived at. She activated the scrolls and mentally agreed with her tenant's opinion while changing his words around so that she could say that she had allowed herself to blush so Naruto would know she had been flattered by his attention. The Nanabe mentally sighed and shook his head at his container's strange sense of female pride. Fu looked up only to come face to face with one of the people she hated the most in her world, Takashi Hinote, the Jounin sensei of her team. He was of average height, with black hair, brown eyes, and a standard Jounin flak jacket with a blue long-sleeves shirt and cargo pants. To say that Takashi was a fair teacher was complete and utter bullshit. He favored Watashi, gave scrolls and recommendations to Himate, and outright told her that she should serve as a meat shield for her teammates, considering she was blessed with super strength from the Nanabe. He stared at her with unrestrained hate in his brown eyes. Good to see you made it through. You have 3 days till the next exams. Your room is 3 floors up and the third on the right, he said, gaining nods from his team. Demon, you stay behind. Himate and Watashi, go ahead and get some rest, he said, getting a happy nod from Watashi and a reluctant one from Himate. Himate wasn't stupid enough to hate Fu, but that didn't mean he would stand up for her. Takashi sneered at Fu as her teammates took off. I expect you to sacrifice yourself should Watashi or Himate need to pass the next exam. We must show Taki's power to the world at these exams. Do not disappoint me or I'm sure that I can convince Shibuki-sama that you are more than ready for some rank solo missions, or maybe some seduction missions, he stated with curiousness in his voice. In any case, I'm sure you'll do the right thing, demon, he said cruelly before turning and walking off. Fu stood there silently, at the atrium to the gate. Her sensei was ordering her to harm another ninja to ensure that her teammates reached the finals. She was an 18-year-old genin simply because Taki refused to let her take the exams before now. Shibuki could only do so much, and getting her into these exams was a challenge. She would probably never have the chance to advance again. Tears welled, unbidden, in her eyes as she shook her head, trying to keep them from falling. However, it was for naught as she realized that she was merely an expendable resource to her village. She slowly trudged her way to the room as Nanabe tried to console his container. He failed and Fu fell on the mattress before curling into a ball and falling asleep, her teammates having decided to fill their stomachs first and were not witness to her pain. The Nanabe shook its armored head inside Fu's mind. He was, personally, as disgusted with Taki as Hitomi was with Konoha. Fu was 18, having been trained since she was 8, and yet she only knew 4 jutsu, water walking for control, and could control 3 tails. Her jutsu were the Academy 3, although it was Mizu Bunshin and not the regular Bunshin, and Takigaku Ryu, Mizukiri no Yaiba, hidden waterfall style, water cutting sword, which she only had learned because of Shibuki. She usually used the large red cylinder on her back to carry plenty of water so she could use the only offensive jutsu she knew. While the village had done much to hinder her growth, she was surprisingly agile and fast, easily matching most of Taki's jounin as she would run from them when she was a child. Unfortunately, she didn't have a real taijutsu style so most of her strength was wasted. He shook his head and sighed before he got a devious idea. Well, maybe I can work out something with that Naruto fella. I just hope he doesn't have too many girls as it is, he thought. He would never admit it, but he saw Fu as his surrogate daughter and he would be damned if he wouldn't try to improve her life. With Hana, in Yazuka compound. Hana sat in front of her mother, with a dangerous request of her clan matriarch. Said clan head was staring at her daughter in shock. Why you want to do what? She half yelled / half asked her daughter. Hana felt her face burn with embarrassment. I want to sign the painted dog's contract, Kaa-san, she replied confidently. Tsum sighed and rubbed her forehead. What brought this about? You know all the previous signers of that contract could not pass their test. Why would you seek their help? She asked. Hana looked down in disappointment before fixing her mother with a determined stare. All of the other girls with Naruto-kun have something special. Anko has hydras, Ami-chan has wolves, Hikari-chan has foxes, Yujito has the Nibi, and even Kushina has phoenixes. All I have is above average tracking skills and impressive taijutsu. Tsunade-sama has been teaching me more medical jutsu but I don't have the control necessary for her super strength. I need some type of edge and the painted dogs can do that for me, she replied. Tsum silently considered her daughter's words. So you want to have an edge for Naruto? She asked curiously. Hana seemed to give it a moment of thought before shaking her head. Not just for Naruto. I'm only about high Chunin level Kaa-san. I need more strength so I can protect my pack and ensure that we never have to worry about outside threats. Inside threats are something we will just have to work with seeing as we have to live and work together, she answered. Tsum smiled softly. I knew Naruto would be a good influence on you, she said warmly. You can sign the contract, she said, getting a bright smile from her daughter, until her own smile turned devious. Now when can I expect some grand pups? I don't wanna wait for Kiba because, Kami knows, that boy can be very perverted and it will take a special woman to control him, she stated grinning. Hana blushed bright red. I don't plan to wait much longer, she said softly, not looking her mother in the eye. Tsum barked out a laugh. Fine, I won't pry anymore. Let's go get you that contract na, she said smiling, getting a happy nod from her still flushed daughter. Inyazuka compound, underground wildlife bunker. Tsum and Hana arrived quickly, both having known of the secret location to the scroll as part of the clan head family. Hana approached the large scroll apprehensively. Painted dogs, or African wild dogs, were possibly the best hunters of the dog race. As their surrogate name suggests, they come in a variety of colorful combinations, usually with orange predominantly in the background with white, brown, and black patches. They were also called wolves at one point in time, but were discovered to be dogs and not of the wolf species. The painted dogs are somewhat cruel in their hunting as they wear down their prey before using their powerful jaws to tear meat from said prey. They would often eat a captured antelope alive and so were known to be cruel. However, this is not different from many other hunters and the cruelness was overrated. Hana took in her surroundings as she stepped up to the small pedestal that held the contract. It was a rather sparsely wooded area, underground with a large seal that produced light like the sun, with high grass. The perfect setting for the painted dogs to administer a test to the signer of their contract. She nodded to her mother, who stepped back to the entrance of the area and sealed it off. She took a steadying breath and stepped onto the raised dais that held the pedestal. She quickly crossed the small space, opened the contract, and signed it before she lost her courage. She took another steadying breath as she gathered most of her chakra in an attempt to summon the boss. She poured her chakra into the jutsu and yelled, Kuki-yos no jutsu. Summoning technique, followed soon by a huge burst of smoke. When it cleared, Hana was surprised. Instead of summoning something large, there seemed to be nearly 20 painted dogs standing in a protective circle around a slightly larger dog. She took in their myriad of colors before focusing on the largest, obviously the alpha, and taking in his features. True to his heritage, his coat was a light orange color with several white spots with a black outline and a large white circle on his right side above his leg. His tail was tipped in white and looked somewhat like a fox's tail. His ears were large, held almost like fuller rabbit ears, meaning that they weren't as long but rather a more circular oval shape. His jaw was powerful and his teeth were sharp, obviously ready for hunting at any time. His eyes were a piercing dark brown, almost black, and they were staring at her intently. So another of the Inyazuka wishes to take my test? Tell me who you are, pup, he said. Hana snapped back to reality and stared at the leader. My name is Hana Inyazuka. I humbly ask that you allow me to summon your noble clan, she replied, bowing her head. The leader stared at her, with many of his group beginning to snarl. Well, Hana Inyazuka, you must first pass our test, and you are failing so far, he said, giving her a disapproving look. Hana looked up and noticed the several smirks on their faces before snarling at them in her own feral manner. Don't you smirk at me, you little shits. I'm talking to your alpha, piss off, she growled. She may be one of the tamer Inyazuka, but she was an alpha and she'd be damned if she let the underlings laugh at her. The other dogs began to snarl again until Hana growled in a threatening way, causing a smirk to appear on the leader's muzzle. Perhaps I spoke too soon. Silence, he ordered to his pack, who tucked their tails between their legs. Now, the first part of the test was to ensure that you wouldn't just submit to us because we are your summons. We look for partners, not subordinates, he said, gaining a nod from Hana. The second part, we will not aid you if your mate, or pack, are weak, he continued. Hana actually chuckled at that one, making the dogs curious. My pack consists of Hikari Yoko, the Kuwabai no Kitsune, Anko Mitarashi, the Hydra Summoner, Ujito Nii, container of the Nibi no Nikomata, Kushina Uzumaki, the summoner of the phoenixes, Amaterasu of the sun, and, my mate, Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, the chosen of the Anjuin and avatar of Susanoo, as of right now, she replied. Needless to say, the leader was stunned. That is quite the pack, Hana-san. My name is Hanta, Hunter, I am the alpha of this pack. There are 2 more parts to our test and I will be administering them. My pack will observe and offer their opinions, however my word is final, he said seriously. His pack immediately disappeared into the underbrush, and although Hana couldn't feel them, she knew they were there. Hana nodded. What do I need to do, Hanta-sama? She asked, being respectful of her, hopefully, new companion. Hanta sat down and waved a paw, motioning for her to do the same. The last 2 tests are rather simple. Most do not pass the second. The third is a simple question and answer session to determine if you have the mindset appropriate for our species, and the last is a combat test. If you pass these, we will begin your training immediately. Any questions? He asked, getting a shake of the head from Hana. He smirked. Then let us begin, he said. Again thank you to Wordha for the suggestion. Great animal. Chunin exams, 3 days later, preliminaries. After a short introduction from Anko, Tsunade, along with Jiraiya, Shizuan, and Sarutobi, had appeared on the balcony and explained the reason for the exams. The teams had promptly been split up randomly into 2 different areas of the tower for preliminaries. Naruto's half had Fu's team, the Konoha 12, the sound team with the mummy, it seems that you could still pass as long as your own team was not dead, and the sand team. In total, there were 21 genin to take the exam, with a total of 10 matches and 1 free pass to the finals, making the finals have 6 matches. Naruto gazed at Gaara for a moment before nodding to himself. It seemed that he had a Jinhiriki brother in this exam. He sniffed the air and smelled snakes, surprising him, and he tried to locate it only for it to fade as he focused on it. He snorted in disappointment before returning to his observations. He also noticed that Fu had bags under her eyes and seemed to be nervous and shifty. He gave her a questioning look, and felt something well up in his chest, but he didn't have a chance to act on it as Hayate asked everyone to move up to the balconies. Fu, true to Naruto's observation, was nervous and scared. She had spent the past 3 days wallowing in her own weakness, despite the Nanabe's attempts to cheer her up. Hell, the Biju was surprised by her actions. Fu had never allowed herself to cry because of what Taki's villagers thought of her. Unfortunately, now knowing that she would never be allowed to be truly taught, despite Shivuki's best efforts, and she was nothing more than a human meat shield, she had cracked. She was tired of all the hate and prejudice. It was almost as bad as Naruto's own, however, she had it worse as even children openly called her a demon. She had barely been encouraged to finish these exams by Nanabe but had resolved to do her best. As the teams finished splitting up, with the foreign teams opposite the Leaf teams, a portion of the wall shifted to reveal a board. It lit up and scrambled through names until it came to Sasuke Uchiha and Dosu of the Sound. Hayate called them down and suddenly a poof was heard from beside the Hokage balcony. Everyone looked over only to find 2 rather stunning girls, who were wearing differing school uniforms. The first, a figure that caused Naruto to immediately pale and start sweating. She had dark purple eyes and light ocean blue hair with purple bows on each side of her head. She was wearing a long-sleeve white blouse under a tight yellow sweater and a green pleated checkered skirt with some regular school shoes. The other, a figure none but Hikari knew, she had long black hair, with purple eyes as well. She wore a plain button-up white shirt with a large red bow tie and a dark orange jacket over that with a brown skirt that had red lines running across and down it, again with regular school shoes. Both girls could rival many goddesses in breast size and were easily the attention of males across the world. The blue-haired girl smiled brightly and grabbed a mic before yelling, "Hi everybody. This is Kurama here, reporting to you live from the Konoha preliminary matches." She then pointed to her long-haired friend, "And this is my co-host." She leaned in close to the camera, "and fellow male tease, Chizuru," she said loudly. Chizuru smiled as well and grabbed her own mic. "The first matchup is between Sasuke Uchiha and Dosu of the Sound Village. But no one cares about that," she said, gaining sweat drops from everyone before the camera, and subsequently the 2 beautiful hosts appeared next to Naruto, who was mentally cursing. "This, ladies and gentlemen, is what you are tuning in to see. The finest specimen of man to be found anywhere and, hopefully, we can take to our room later today," she said cheerfully. At that moment, everyone in the room felt 7, although some could swear it was 8, massive keys hitting them. Kurumu and Chizuru both shrugged it off, but Naruto paled even more. Naruto gulped. Girls, how about you report the preliminaries and I'll think about an interview later," he said, hoping that would appease all of his girls, and these two apparent horn dogs. Chizuru looked to Kurumu, who nodded, before pouting, "Fine. Let's get this show on the road," she yelled as they repaired in the viewing balcony near the Hokage. The keys disappeared and Naruto sighed in relief. Shino put a hand on his friend's shoulder. "I pray for your survival when you get home, my friend," he said, gaining nods from all the males, sweat drops from the females, and a nod of thanks from Naruto. Same time, Namikaze Estates. All of Naruto's girls were watching the TV. Hana had been able to postpone training to watch her mate, whilst everyone else had agreed to make popcorn and watch. Yujito had set up a connection to Nibi constantly so she could see everything in real time as their deal was not yet completed. When the two announcers appeared, all the girls present for the trials growled at Kurumu and Hikari growled louder at Chizuru, causing everyone to look at her in confusion. Chizuru is very direct in her pursuit of a mate. She's also a massive male tease when she sets her sights on someone. Knowing our Naruto-kun, she'll be after him in a heartbeat. Hikari explained, getting growls from the assembled girls. Needless to say, the 7 girls, Nibi included, had blasted their ki at the 2 male teases to warn them that Naruto was theirs. Unbeknownst to them, Fu's ki had also spiked, although it hadn't been as prevalent as Naruto's lovers. They had backed off, noticing Naruto's little ploy and settling in to watch their Naruto wipe out the competition. Kami's court, same time. The female gods were chuckling at the girls' reaction and Inari was giving Naruto a hidden thumbs up, only to be slammed by a giant mallet that Tsukuyomi had made appear out of nowhere. Kami chuckled as she watched Destiny walk in. "Why do I get a feeling that there's a fate lover in there?" she asked aloud. Yami groaned, "Please not another one. They suck the fun out of everything with fate this and fate that, freaking cyborgs," she commented. Inari looked like a lost little puppy, or kit depending on your preference, until Yami sighed. "Okay, who the hell is that other girl?" she asked him. He immediately brightened until Tsukuyomi grabbed the mallet again saying, "I swear if you act like you did for the trials, I will kick your ass," the childlike goddess said. Inari pouted, "Fine. She's from Konokan. She's a shameless direct flirter with whoever she wants to mate with," he replied. Susanoo just sighed. "Let's keep an eye on that sound team, huh?" he said, getting nods from the assembled court as their eyes went back to the screen. Preliminaries, canon fights will go the same. Sasuke and Dosu stood across from one another as Hayate stepped between them. "There are no rules. The fight continues until I stop it. One of you dies, or one gives up, understood?" he asked, surprisingly without coughs. He got 2 nods so he raised his hand before bringing it down yelling, "Hajime," and jumping back slightly. The crowd waited with bated breath for the fight to begin. The 2 opponents stared each other down until Dosu rushed forward, his gauntleted hand raised to deliver a punch. Sasuke immediately ran through hand seals at a blistering pace and called out, "Katon, Housenka no Jutsu. Fire release, Phoenix flower technique," as several small fireballs rushed the bandaged genin. Dosu's only eye widened and he abandoned his attack to dodge the 12 homing fireballs. He was able to effectively dodge Tom, but a few had been too close for his comfort. He fixed his eye on Sasuke, who was smirking. Dosu growled before throwing his gauntlet forward. Now Sasuke may be arrogant, but he wasn't stupid. He immediately jumped away. However, when he landed, he teetered, and his vision blurred as there was a loud ringing in his ears. The watching genin were shocked, not being able to see the sound waves created by Dosu's melody arm. "Hee hee, you arrogant jackass. My melody arm allows me to create and control sound waves to destroy your eardrums and your sense of equilibrium. Just a few more attacks and I'll be able to knock you out and end this match," he said smirking. Sasuke resisted the urge to throw up and growled at the opposing genin. "I'll get you for that," he said as he tried to balance himself and walk towards the smirking genin. Dosu, for once ignoring his own advice about being overconfident, walked forward, blasting the Uchiha with his sound waves once again. "You can barely walk. How could you possibly get me if you can't even stand up?" he asked mockingly as he stopped around 10 feet from Sasuke. Sasuke smirked as he held onto his knees for support. Everyone felt his chakra flare slightly before he stared into Dosu's eyes with his Sharingan. His hands became a blur as his Sharingan allowed him to copy Dosu's stance so he wouldn't have to rely on his own body's functions. "Katon, Kukyaku no Jutsu. Fire release, great fireball technique. He roared as a large ball of flame engulfed the shocked sound genin. Everyone winced as they heard Dosu drop to the floor screaming as he tried to put out the flames. Hayate stepped forward. Shusha, Suzuki Uchiha, he yelled. The medics quickly came out and put Dosu out before loading him onto a stretcher and getting him to the infirmary as Suzuki rejoined his team with several bouts of congratulations from his fellow genin. He grunted in response, but he had a slight smirk on his face. Kurumu suddenly spoke up. Well, that was a blazing finish, if ya know what I mean, she said smiling. Chizuru nodded her head sagely. Yep. So who's gonna be next? I hope it's that god of a manly Specumon Naruto, she said giggling as she gazed at him dreamily, causing Keys to spike yet again. Kurumu chuckled. Down girl, we can get him later. He's a sly one, I know that much, so we will have to be on our toes. In any case, it seems that the next match has been decided, she said happily. Indeed, she was right. The board had flashed through names once again until it landed on Tenten and Tamari. The two girls headed down to the field and the fight soon started with Tenten using weapons and Tamari being a wind user. Needless to say, Tenten was at a severe disadvantage. Naruto shook his head and decided to ignore that in favor for something more interesting, Fu. He had looked at her before, but he took this time to really take in her features. She had milk chocolate skin, being maybe a shade darker than that, with orange eyes, something he was very attracted to as orange was still his favorite color after all. She also had an orange hair clip in her mint green hair that was cut rather short. She wore an all-white outfit with a short white midriff sleeveless shirt with fishnet armor beneath that. She had white arm warmers over both her arms with her hitayate around her right arm. She also wore fishnet shorts with a short white skirt and a large red cylinder on her back, that carried water unbeknownst to any but her. While she didn't have large breasts, maybe a low B cup, her legs were something to be admired. They were long and really seemed to go on forever, rippling slightly as she shifted from one foot to another. Naruto subconsciously licked his lips before his eyes returned to gazing into her orange pools. Fu was watching the fight with some interest, hoping to find info on her opponents when she felt like she was being watched. Her eyes shifted up and her breath caught in her throat as she noticed Naruto staring at her eyes intently. She immediately blushed and looked back to the fight, trying to forget his stare. Nanabe chuckled in her mind, perhaps you should talk to the Okamai boy and see if he would treat you like his other women? I'm sure you'd enjoy to go a night with him, he said teasingly, causing her blush to increase. Nanabe shut up. I wouldn't just jump in his bed. That's so slutty. What would he think if I just threw myself at him, she asked mentally as she noticed the match drawing to a close. The Nanabe mentally smirked as this was the most positive emotion she had felt in the past 3 days. I don't know, if you explained yourself I'm sure he'd give you the best night of your life, but that's up to you, he said, pausing a moment before his voice became quiet and concerned. I just want to see you follow your heart for once, little one. Think about it. Would it really be so bad to ask him to help you? There is a reason he has nearly 7 girls after him, and why he is the chosen of the Anjuin, he said softly before retreating into the depths of her mind, leaving her to ponder on her friends, and sometimes surrogate fathers, words. The match was coming to a close and Tenten was falling onto Tamari's fan, which would obviously end up causing her serious back trouble. However, just as she was getting near it, a green blur intercepted the bun-haired girl. Lee set his teammate down next to his team, with Niji giving her a disappointed glare, while Guy walked over to check her injuries. He caressed her cheek and blushed slightly when she moved into the touch. He growled and stood up, glared at Tamari. Is this the way you treat an opponent who has given her all to beat you? You had a huge advantage and you declare her weak just because she wasn't able to hurt you, he yelled at the sand girl, who scoffed at him. She is weak. Relying on weapons. Real kunoichi would. She never got to finish as Lee slammed his fist into the ground in front of her, creating a small crater. Never call Tenten-chan weak. She is a real kunoichi and I swear on my Nindo and my flames of youth, TM, that I will beat you in the next round of the exams, he yelled at her before jumping back to his teammate. Everyone was quiet for a moment before Tamari scoffed again and headed back up the stairs. Lee had retaken his position beside Tenten, who wasn't majorly injured, just tired. Naruto smiled at him, but frowned as he saw Niji give them both glares. He shook his head and walked over to Lee, putting a hand on his shoulder. Lee looked up and Naruto smiled. You are a great friend, Lee-san. I wonder if you would do me the honor of training with me sometime, he asked, getting gasps from many of the Jounin as they knew what Guy and his mini-clone considered training. Lee smiled, despite his slightly red eyes. I would be honored, Naruto-san, he yelled happily while holding Tenten's hand. Only Naruto and Guy caught it, but Tenten smiled as she fell asleep. Naruto chuckled and nodded, retaking his spot next to his team. Kurumu and Chizuru sniffed before hugging each other. What a display of affection. Despite his weird taste in clothes and those strange flames of youth, I'm sure Lee-san will make a great husband someday. Kurumu said, wiping a tear from her eye. Chizuru smiled, definitely. But, anyway, it's time for the next fight, she said happily, everyone once again focusing on the board until it stopped on two names that made Fu's heart nearly stop in her chest. Watashi Adame and Gaara no Sabaku, come on duo of one, she said in a loud voice. Takashi glanced at Fu and noticed her stiff posture before smirking. He leaned in close to her and whispered, be ready to do your part, demon, causing Fu to shake. Naruto noticed this and frowned, that feeling returning to his chest. Once again, however, he was interrupted by the loud shout of Hajime from Hayate. Watashi smirked at the solemn boy before running through hand seals and disappearing in a blast of sakura petals. Gaara just stood there, confident in his ability to defend against such an insignificant ninja. In the real world, Watashi was still smirking as he walked up to Gaara and pulled out a kunao, reaching forward to put it to Gaara's neck. He barely noticed the sand in time to back away and the pulse of chakra that destroyed his genjutsu. Is that all you've got? Pathetic. I won't waste any more time with you, he said in a gravelly voice before bringing his hand up and forcing his sand towards the surprised Taki genin. Watashi was able to evade the sand for nearly 3 strikes before it grabbed onto his leg and Gaara smirked. The sand stopped Watashi in midair, who began to scream at Gaara. Gaara just ignored him and watched with a sadistic glee as his opponent was thoroughly covered in sand, saying, Sabakukyu. Sand binding coffin. Up in the stands, it didn't take a genius to figure out what was coming up next. Kankuro just shook his head and looked at the Jounin. Your student is dead, he said blandly. Fu entertained the thought of saving Watashi, part out of fear from Takashi and part from Amibi getting some respect, but Nanabi shot that down. You know as well as I that they wouldn't care, and he'd probably bitch about you making him lose the fight, he replied, actually getting Fu to just frown at the stupidity of her teammate. Takashi's eyes grew wide at Kankuro's words and he grabbed Fu. Help him, he ordered. However, before she could react, Gaara's voice sounded through the arena once again, accompanied by a resounding crack of bones being crushed. Sabaku Soso. Sand waterfall burial. Everything was silent for a moment as they stared at the brutal killing of Watashi. Gaara began to walk away as Hayate said, Shusha, Gaara no Sabaku. Takashi stared with wide eyes for only a second longer before Fu found herself crashing into the wall behind her, her left cheek ablaze with pain. Takashi glared at Fu, you worthless bitch. You can't even follow a simple order. When we get back to Taki, I'm gonna make sure they lock you up for life, he roared, raising his hand again. A growl came from across the room and Takashi had no time to react as Naruto's fist implanted itself in Takashi's head, sending him head first into the wall beside Fu. Fu's eyes widened as she saw Naruto's body be encased in a strange golden chakra. Takashi groaned and pulled himself from the wall. Naruto growled at him as he tried to focus his attention on the glowing demigod. Come near her again, and I'll do more than knock you into a wall, Taki Jounin. Naruto said in his celestial voice. Everyone stared as he grabbed Fu's hand and the two disappeared in a flash of gold. They reappeared beside his team, with a flustered Fu and a still feral-looking Naruto. She didn't voice any opposition as he turned around, still holding her hand, leaned against the wall and pulled her back, making her lean against him, as he wrapped his arms around her waist. He put his head on her right shoulder and began to lick her bruised cheek, causing her face to light up like a Christmas tree. The common thought going through everyone's head was, what the hell is he doing, as they watched him nurse the flushed Jinhiriki. Naruto, himself, was curious as to his actions. He had never been this protective of his girls, so why for some girl he just met? All he remembered was that feeling in his chest bursting forth and an anger and protectiveness he hadn't even known he had, practically exploded causing him to grab Fu and hold her like this. Although, he thought, she isn't complaining, and I rather like this. So, he continued to follow his instincts, even if he had a feeling that he would be spending some quality time with his special ladies later. Namikaze Estates, same time. The girls all watched slack-jawed at his actions to a girl he had obviously met not too long ago. The collective thought was, why the hell doesn't he cuddle with me like that, as each of the girls pouted slightly, none getting mad as they had seen what the Jounin had done and already knew they'd have another girl joining their "We Love Naruto-kun" club later today. They began to wonder what was so special about Fu until Amaterasu blinked and then face-palmed herself. How could I forget that? She asked rhetorically, gaining everyone's attention. She sighed. Naruto was aged by Susanoo, so he didn't go through puberty like normal. Since that happened, his mind hasn't had time to assimilate the traits of an alpha. Apparently, his mind suppressed them until Fu was harmed, and Naruto, seeing her as a potential mate, acted accordingly. I'm sure if one of us had been in danger like her then he would have acted the same way, she just happened to be the trigger, she explained, getting nods from her fellow Naruto lovers. Yujito perked up. So, he'll be okay, she asked. Amaterasu nodded. Yep, he'll be fine. He might be a bit more possessive of us, and he'll probably wanna cuddle like he's doing with Fu right now, not to mention he'll probably be a monster in bed if you let him go wild, she said, blushing at the end. Needless to say, Anko, Hikari, and Hana blushed before having a massive nosebleed and fainting, while Kushina and Yujito both just blushed. Yujito chuckled. Oh yeah, he'll be okay then, she said, smirking, with her blush beginning to recede. Kami's court, same time. Minato pumped his arm in the air. That's my boy. Go get him, he said, smirking. Kami and Yami were smiling, and Susanoo and Inari were smirking like they hit the jackpot until Kami got a curious look on her face. Last I checked, only Kushina and Nibi were added to his harem. Who added Fu? She asked. Destiny began to whistle nonchalantly, causing everyone to sweat drop. What? She asked, gaining glares from the gods, and thumbs up from Susanoo, Minato, and Inari. Oh fine. You guys got to add some, so why can't I? Fu and Samui nii. She said, smirking. Kami and Yami glanced at one another, before shrugging. Fine with us, they said as they refocused on the preliminaries. Preliminaries? Tsunade sighed. Why does this Kaki keep getting more and more girls? She asked as Jiraiya took some notes, until Shizune took them and burned them in her hands. Sarutobi chuckled. I say we still owe him. He deserves as much love as he can get, besides we know he'll treat them all like queens, he said with a devious look in his eye. Tsunade's eyes suddenly took on the same gleam. What did you have in mind, you perverted old coot? He's my godson and there's no way I'm gonna let him settle for anything less than the best, she said, smirking. Sarutobi chuckled as the next fight, Shikamaru vs. Kin, began. It's quite simple. Yujito is already here on a long-term seduction mission from Kumigakure. Wouldn't the relationship between our villages if we had someone like Samui nii to keep her company and to strengthen ties, we could let it slip that if she was arranged to be given to Naruto Namikaze then we would be a very happy and content village, he said, smirking. Tsunade's smirk turned downright foxy. So it has nothing to do with the fact that she's a mini-me in terms of breasts, she asked. Sarutobi just whistled nervously before saying, nope, absolutely not, he said. Tsunade chuckled and refocused on the fight as Kin was knocked unconscious. Alright you old perv, let's do it. Kami knows that boy loves big breasts, I mean, look at his girls, she said, smirking. The four assembled ninja began to plot and devise a very perverted plan, and Naruto was none the wiser. Back to Fu, she was trying to figure out just why she felt so safe in Naruto's arms. She knew he was strong, he was, obviously, protective, and he was lavishing his attention to her cheek, which seemed to be healing at a slightly advanced rate. She knew, for sure, that she was attracted to him, and she was not opposed to being held like she was right now. It made her feel important and she actually snuggled in closer as he kissed her neck when no one was looking. She sighed in contentment as he tightened his grip as Kin was knocked unconscious. She noticed Takashi glaring at her, but she just didn't care right now. And right, you shouldn't, little one. He is nothing, he does not matter, all that does matter is your happiness. Although, I am rather surprised that you are so willing to snuggle with the Okamai boy. Nanabe stated in her mind. Why shouldn't I? She asked her friend. He's stood up for me. He's helped me through the exams. Hell, he treats me like a human. She said before her mental voice became supremely quiet. He treats me like a woman, she conveyed to her Biju. The Nanabe sent a warm feeling to his container. Then stay with him. I am sure he would be more than happy to help you feel like a woman more often, although I don't know if you wanna feel like a woman too often, her friend replied with a slightly perverted ending. Fu's blush increased slightly. Perverted beetle, she thought before grinning. Then again, who said I don't like being his plushie? But, thank you for your support, she replied, sending him her own warm feelings and happiness radiated from her seal. Shino looked back to his friend, who had stopped licking Fu's cheek only to tighten his grip and keep watching the fights over her shoulder. He smirked behind his cloak and returned to observing the fights. You may not claim to be a pervert, Naruto, but you certainly enjoy having beautiful women hanging around you, he thought. Although he held no animosity to his friend, quite the opposite, as he was happy to see the serious Naruto he had originally known become more and more open as his girls squirmed their way into his heart. He shook his head as everyone turned back to the board, now that Kin had been removed and Shikamaru had moved back to his team. The board flashed through names before landing on Ino Yamanaka and Sakura Haruno. The two rivals shared a look before jumping down into the arena. Hate quickly began the fight and Ino charged Sakura. To make a long story short, although both had progressed far in their abilities, they could not fight to their fullest in this arena. Ino had no water to use and Sakura's genjutsu were quickly dispelled by the always aware blonde. It soon turned into a taijutsu match and, although Ino was slightly better than Sakura, had ended with the two knocking each other out. Many of the Leaf Genin watching clapped for their kunoichi friends as they were placed on stretchers and taken out. Kurama smiled brightly into the camera. Well, what a fight. Two rivals, duking it out and ending with a big taijutsu bang. Give it up for them, folks, she said loudly, as the screen once again began to roll. Soon enough, it came to stop on two names that caused both Naruto and Fu to groan in disappointment. Hey, coughed, will Fu and Kankuro no Sabuku please come down to the arena, he asked. Kankuro began to make his way down while Fu pouted for a second and snuggled into Naruto before kicking off and out of his arms before heading down herself. The two ninjas squared off and Hayate quickly started the fight and jumped back slightly, out of their line of fire. Fu growled softly and cracked her knuckles. Let's wrap this up quick. I was comfortable, she said as she dropped into her taijutsu stance. Kankuro sneered at her and pulled Karasu from his back, slamming the wrapped puppet on the ground. Fu charged and Kankuro smirked as he attached his chakra strings to Karasu and forced it to stand in front of him and launch several poisoned senbon towards Fu. Fu growled slightly and swiftly pulled out a kunao, deflecting many of the senbon and getting hit by a few others. She ignored the hits and dropped her kunao before rearing her hand back and punching forward, hoping to hit the wooden puppet. Kankuro, being confident in his puppet's structural strength, smirked and brought it into a defending position, and prepared to use the hidden blades on Karasu's arms. Up in the stands, Himate, Naruto, Shino, and Ino all shook their heads in disappointment. Fu's fist made contact with Karasu and stopped for only a second before Karasu was turned into firewood as it burst under the powerful strike of the Nanabi Jinhyuriki. Kankuro stared shocked as he hadn't thought anyone short of Tsunade Senju had the raw strength to bust his puppet up. He quickly snapped out of it, however, when Fu began to charge him, her fist raised for another strike. He jumped out of her reach and called out, I forfeit. Karasu was my only attack and if my poisons haven't already knocked her out, then she's immune to them. Hayate nodded. Shusha, Fu, he yelled. Fu looked mighty pleased with herself and promptly walked up to the leaf side of the balconies. She went to stand near Naruto's team, deciding not to press her luck despite the Cheshire grin Naruto was giving her for winning. That proved useless, however, when Naruto grabbed her hand and pulled her back to their previous position. Fu promptly blushed and squirmed slightly as he replaced his arms around her waist. Fu looked over her shoulder. I'm not your life-sized plushie or something. You could have asked, she said, trying to sound annoyed. Unfortunately, that was lost as she sighed contentedly and snuggled closer to him. Naruto chuckled. I could have, but I have a feeling you would have said no and then we wouldn't be so comfortable, would we? He asked. Fu blushed but just shook her head slowly, being careful not to slam her head into Naruto's. Would you accompany me to my clan compound when these exams are over? I have something I wish to discuss with you and I do not want you to go back near that jounin again. Naruto said as he glared at Takashi, who hadn't taken his hateful eyes off of Fu since he had regained his bearings. Naruto bared his elongated canines at the man, causing him to shiver in fright as he remembered what the man had done to him not but 20 minutes ago. Fu slowly nodded her acceptance, after much prodding from Nanabi of course. Naruto smiled, pleased at her acceptance and tightened his protective grip on her, unconsciously coming into contact with the seal that held the Nanabi. He looked back to the board to see the names Chuji Akimichi and Himate Urano, before he felt himself falling. He blinked a few times before finding himself standing on a dais that was suspended in the sky. He looked around curiously until he felt something shake the dais and turned around slowly. He nearly flinched as he saw the giant Kabutomushi with 6 giant wings and a tail that lay comfortably on the other end of the rather small dais. "Hello Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze, chosen of the Anjuin. We have need of a talk, you and I," he stated. Naruto gulped. He may be strong, but even he was scared of a pissed-off Biju. "What is it you wish to talk about, Nanabe-sama?" he asked. The Nanabe seemed to smirk and made a clicking sound that was oddly like chuckling. "It concerns my little one, the one you hold in your arms. In the past day, you have done more to open her heart than I or Shivuki have done in 18 years. I wish for you to continue your advances towards my container as it will help her to develop more as a person, and as a woman," he said, eyeing the man carefully. Naruto frowned slightly. "I will only do so should she continue to accept them. I will not force her into anything. Although, I will admit that my actions just earlier today are a bit curious to me and, while not unwelcome, concern me as I do not wish to arbitrarily act that way to every woman," he said honestly. The Nanabe smiled, "As much he could anyways. It seems that they forgot to tell you. Be glad that all Biju can still communicate somewhat. Your alpha instincts were taking over seeing as you suppressed them for so long, unconsciously of course. You shouldn't have any problem controlling them as long as you get to cuddle with your mates a little more often, and assert your dominance as well, but I doubt it will be a big problem in your future. In any case, I am happy to hear you will pursue her. She deserves someone who can make her feel like a woman." However, the giant beetle moved closer to Naruto and fixed him with a deadly stare. "If you hurt her, I will rip your balls off and shove them down your throat, Oka my boy. Remember that," he said seriously. Naruto gulped again and nodded. "Sounds like a fair trade-off," he said nervously. The Nanabe smirked again. "Glad to hear you agree. Now, the fights are almost over and I believe you will be up soon," he said, getting a nod from Naruto as he prepared to leave. "And Naruto turned to see the beetle looking at him softly. "Protect her," he said before ejecting the boy from the seal. Naruto returned to the real world just as Zuko blew his arms off from having Shino's bugs clog up his arms. Apparently, Naruto had missed 2 fights during his talk. Himate, being a medic nin, took one look at Chuji's Nakuden Sensha, human bullet tank, technique and promptly forfeited, saying he had nothing in his arsenal to allow him to dodge or block the large boy's attack. Chuji had been declared the winner and Shino and Zuko were chosen for the next fight. It was short as Shino had opted to block Zuko's only means of attack and ended with the boy being critically injured. What a gruesome tactical victory. An excellent ace in the hole indeed. Kuruma said excitedly. Chizuru nodded. "That's an abarame for you." Using logic to score their victory, she added. Yamato nodded to the stoic abarame as he rejoined his team, though not before getting a kiss on the cheek from Hinata. Several of the other genin congratulated him on his victory before the screen lit up once again. The screen stopped on 2 names, one of which caused Lee to shout for joy, waking up his female teammate. "Would Rock Lee and Kiba and Yazuka please come down to the arena?" Hayate asked. "Yosh, I shall win this fight and advance to the finals so I can defend Tenten-chan's flames of youth," he yelled as he appeared in front of the feral boy, who was actually intimidated by the boy's pure speed. Tenten stood up holding her head, with a sweat drop as well. "Lee, stop being so loud," she said, causing her teammate to look at her with giant puppy dog eyes, with caterpillars on top. But, Tenten-chan, I must defend your Nindo and your flames of youth." "If I cannot do that," Lee's eyes took on a glint all too familiar to the bun-haired girl, who swiftly pulled out a kunao and threw it at his hand, causing him to stop yelling and grab the kunao in midair. Tenten giggled. "If you stop yelling, and beat this chump, I'll treat you to lunch at your favorite place," she said nonchalantly. None of the other genin, minus Naruto, and many of the jounin, minus Guy, wrote that off as nothing more than teammates motivating one another. However, the look in her eyes said something far different. Lee froze momentarily before a shit-eating grin appeared on his face. "As you wish," he said, bowing to her before taking up his Goken stance against Kiba, who gulped. "Let us begin," he said seriously. Hayate smirked and coughed. "Hajime," he yelled. Lee and Kiba eyed each other only for a moment before Kiba called out, "Shikyaku no Jutsu. 4 legs technique, and gaining some feral attributes." Lee frowned slightly. "I am sorry Kiba-san, but I will not lose this fight," he said as he shifted slightly. Kiba growled. "Don't underestimate me," he yelled as he charged at Lee. The following blows were so fast, only the jounin and most skilled of the genin could detect them. Lee and Kiba exchanged nearly 10 strikes in a second, culminating in Kiba being blown back and unconscious from Lee's vicious assault. Everyone stared in shock. The guy certainly didn't look like a threat, but he was very strong. Hey took one look at the downed Kiba and sighed before coughing again. Shusha, Rock Lee, he yelled. Lee quickly appeared beside his female teammate and began to dote on her, asking many times if she was okay, until she bunked him on the head and threatened to spend her day working at her father's store instead of going to lunch with him, causing him to immediately shut up and stand beside her nervously. Naruto chuckled, as did many others, before taking a mental count of who was left and sighing. Hinata, Neji, and Naruto were left. Naruto hoped that the matchup was him and Neji as he didn't want to fight Hinata, and Naruto had a bad feeling that a fight between Neji and Hinata would not be pretty. He focused his attention on the board only to find that his wish was granted. His and Neji's names were proudly displayed. Naruto felt Fusai before pushing away from him and then standing next to his team, who nodded warmly to her. Naruto smirked and headed downstairs. Kurama squealed, "This is the fight you've all been waiting for, folks. The god of a hunk, Naruto Uzumaki, and the cold indifferent Bishounen, Neji Hyuga are going to battle it out," she said. Chizuru sighed dreamily. "Yeah, wouldn't it be awesome if they turned it into a mud fight?" she asked, her eyes taking on a dangerous gleam. Suddenly, Fu appeared and clocked them both. "Don't get lost in your fantasies. Just report on the fight," she growled before reappearing near Naruto's team. The two announcers stared at her slightly scared and decided to let the fight continue without their more interesting comments. Neji glared at Naruto from behind as they made their way down to the arena. They stopped in front of Hayate, who looked between the two before yelling, "Hajime," and jumping back slightly. The two genin glared at one another, Naruto returning Neji's hostility. Neji activated his Byakugan, trying to intimidate the demigod. "You are the dead last of your class. Despite the rumors of your strength, you were fated to fail and you are fated to lose to me here today," he said confidently. Naruto could literally feel Susanoo slap his forehead. Kami's court, same time. Susanoo face-palmed and said, "Really? Why do you always have to be right, Kami-sama?" he asked. Kami blushed and shrugged sheepishly. Everyone turned their attention to where they knew the action would be, and weren't disappointed. You see, Destiny was the usual name for the god who controlled long-term plans and prophecies. However, she also had a dual personality with Fate, and Fate hated being worshipped as they always used her as an excuse for everything. Destiny's normal calm eyes grew angered, becoming glowing pools of golden energy. The gods all took a look at the screen again only to sweat drop, followed soon by the girls in the Namikaze estates, and across the elemental nations. Preliminaries, same time. The mortals looked around in confusion as Neji was enveloped in a golden light. Naruto sweat dropped as he felt the energy, and guessed at what was going on. When the light died down, Neji was standing in a girl's purple dress, complete with high heels and lipstick. Naruto shivered and Neji looked down, totally shocked, until his face became stoic again. "It is fate." And, for once, he was right. That didn't mean that every person watching, gods included, didn't facepalm as well when he said that. Naruto frowned. "Can we get him some regular clothes? Even if he's Bishounen, I won't fight him dressed like that, it's just too freaky," he said. Tsunade's sweat dropped. "Yeah," she agreed. Luckily, Kurama and Chizuru were too stunned to make any comments. Anumbu disappeared before reappearing with clothes for Neji, who quickly stepped into the hall to change. Neji soon stepped back in, and the fight was back on. Neji glared at Naruto and dashed forward, intent on ending this as soon as possible. Naruto decided he didn't want to use his bloodline and began to use his superior speed and reflexes to dodge the quick jabs from the Hyuga branch member. Neji growled before taking a step back and smirking victoriously, "You are in my field of divination, Hakurokyu Yansho. 8 trigrams 64 palms, he yelled as he blurred forward. Naruto rolled his eyes at the predictable style and used his superior speed to jump back, and out of range, of the attacking Hyuga. Neji snarled as he realized he had to abandon his attack lest he leave his own defenses vulnerable. Naruto flashed through hand seals and slammed his hand on the ground. "Raiten, Kaminari Saji no Jutsu. Lightning release, lightning surge technique," he yelled as he sent lightning dancing across the ground towards the Hyuga branch member. Neji jumped out of the way, and stuck to the wall, waiting for the attack to die down. Big mistake. Naruto let the attack dissipate and raised his hand, forming a seal in the air in under a minute, although he several underpowered it, and yelled out, Heido no Yan, Byakurai. Way of Destruction Number 4, Pale White Lightning, he yelled as a beam of white lightning streaked towards the shocked genin and slammed into his chest. Everyone watched with bated breath as they waited for the after effects of the jutsu. Niji twitched and tried to move, only to find his nervous system had shut down, disabling his ability to move. Naruto sighed, I underpowered that. You should be fine in a few hours, with help from the medic nins, although you will probably have random twitches for the next month or so, he stated. Niji just glared at him as Hayate stepped forward. Shusha, Naruto Uzumaki, he yelled. Kurama came out of nowhere, along with Chizuru as they both yelled, Great job Naruto Kyuyu. That sentence turned into mush as they impacted with an annoyed Fu's fists. Get your own plus highs. He's mine, she growled before grabbing him and leaning into his chest as she watched everyone else make their way down to the arena. Naruto blushed slightly and wondered how his girls would react when he got home before he decided that he didn't care right now as Fu snuggled closer to him. After a short congratulations, a picking of numbers where Shino picked up numbers for the Tujin hierarchy, and the removal of Kurama and Chizuru, the finals were determined and announced for a month afterwards with the following lineup. Match 1, Hinata vs Fu. Match 2, Sasuke vs Shino. Match 3, Naruto vs Chuji. Match 4, Temari vs Lee. Match 5, Shikamaru vs Gaara. Shikamaru's eyes widened and he muttered very troublesome as he noticed he was facing the homicidal maniac. Tsunade congratulated them again before dismissing them. Takashi began to make his way over to Fu, who glared at him, while Naruto smirked and brought his mouth next to her ear. Time to meet the family, he whispered as the world twisted around them. Naruto and Fu appeared on the sidewalk outside his home. Naruto knew that his girls had been watching the matches and would probably kick his ass when he walked in with yet another woman, but he knew that Fu needed a friend, and if she wanted to be with him too, well, like he told Nanabe, he wasn't against that. He let go of Fu and turned to her, I think I should warn you. I'm the last of my clans and I hold a bloodline, so I fall under the CRA. At the moment, I have 6 women that live with me, and 3 of which I have already asked to be my wives, although one is an arranged marriage, so I guess you could say I have 4 that are engaged to me, he said, surprising her. Fu pulled her arms up to her chest in a guarded manner, 1,000 thoughts running through her head. Did he care about her? Maybe he just found her attractive. Did he act like his other girls were plus highs as well, just to name a few? But, they all settled on one question, will you still be my friend? She asked softly. Naruto frowned slightly and pulled her into a hug. Of course, no matter what, I'll be your friend, he said warmly. Fu smiled and snuggled into his chest, taking a deep whiff of him as she was about to write him off into the just friends category when he spoke again. Of course, being more than a friend would be significantly more fun and entertaining as I would get to make you my plushie as often as I, or you, want. Naruto said, smirking as Fu stiffened in his arms. Fu's mind screeched to a halt before going down a perverted road at the thought of Naruto making her his plushie all night long and doing things. Heel girl. I know he's hot and all, but you should get to know him a bit more first. Nanabe spoke in her mind, causing her to blush and relax. Sorry Nanabe-kun. You're right, I'll see if I can't get him out on a date later, she replied to her tenant as she took a step back and smiled warmly at Naruto, her orange eyes shining with happiness. I'd like that, she replied. Naruto smiled and threw his hands wide open. Great. Now, let's meet the rest of our friends, shall we? He asked as he put an arm around her shoulder and walked towards the door. Fu threw him a strange look. Our friends? She asked with curiosity in her voice. Naruto just kept on smiling, partly to hide his nervousness that his girls would kill him, and partly because he was happy. Of course. Any friend of mine is a friend of my girls as well, he said confidently. Fu just decided to nod and hold her tongue as they walked up to the door. Naruto turned the knob and yelled, I'm home, before looking in and blinking in surprise. His girls weren't angry, hell they looked downright happy. Fu, on the other hand, wasn't quite as happy as they, or Naruto, was. She took in each of the girls' figures and mentally frowned. How the hell am I supposed to compete with these girls? She thought half sadly, half angrily. It was true, each girl had their own good rack, the lowest being Hana, who was a high C low D cup, however she made up with that for a cute heart-shaped rear. Fu wasn't nearly as well endowed as they were, and her only redeeming feature were her attractive legs. Little did she know that Nanabe was already working on a plan to change that. Hikari stepped forward. Welcome to the club, Fu-chan. First order of business, shadow clones for everyone and Kushina's ramen, she said, smirking while giving Naruto a look that said, if you say no I'll make you sleep on the couch for a week. Needless to say, the girls were each swept off their feet by a shadow clone, sans Hikari who nabbed the real Naruto, and they cuddled with the new more protective Naruto as they were fed ramen. Naruto chuckled warmly, so I'm guessing you all know who Fu-chan is then, huh? He asked. Hikari smacked him on the head. Of course, she's Nanabe-kun's container, she said simply as she slurped a bit more ramen from Naruto's chopsticks. Kushina nodded. Oh. And another groupie of our Naruto fan club, she said, smirking as Fu blushed in her shadow clone's arms. The other girls just chuckled good-naturedly. Naruto shook his head and smiled. The last girl to join their little group, Kushina, was still having a rough time, but it seems that Fu would fit in just fine. Fu had spent most of her time being fed but also gauging the different people. They all seemed so happy and were very eager to get to know her and her background. She kept most of her history toned down, which the girls could tell after talking with Naruto about his past and the way he covered things up. The mini-party/snuggle fest took almost 3 hours and had moved to the living room, where everyone spread out with their respective piece of Naruto, before Fu spoke up quietly. Why, she whispered. Yujito, being the closest, smiled warmly at her as everyone focused on the, hopefully, newest addition to their growing family. You wanna know why they're so warm and caring even though they don't really know you? She asked, getting a nod from the other Jinhuriki. That's simple. Each one of us either has a bad history, or is in love with someone whose history is as bad as your own. We know you need friends, and we want help you. It's as simple as that, she said, smiling. I've been where you are, just know, Naruto never breaks a promise and he always pays attention to those he loves, she said warmly before going back to snuggling with her own furry buddy. Fu stared wide-eyed at Yujito before burying her face in SC Naruto's jacket and sobbing softly, praying what the girl said was true. The other girls just gave her a sad smile before deciding to leave her alone. Naruto looked down to Hikari, who smiled and nodded, before switching with Fu's shadow clone and holding her gently. Hikari smiled warmly before whispering into SC Naruto's ear, put her in the 4th bedroom on the right, and bopping him on the head, dispelling him. The real Naruto nodded and picked up the sleep Fu before heading upstairs. That night, Fu would have the best and most restful sleep she ever had, and she would wake up changed in a way she never expected. Next morning, Namikaze Estates. Naruto awoke slowly and realized he had 2 beautiful immortals snuggled into his arm, and a certain Hidori Sennin was rubbing her cheek against his crotch, causing him to sweat drop. He silently made a clone and switched with it. The clone smirked at him and Naruto was tempted to dispel it until he decided it wasn't worth waking up his girls. He made his way down the stairs until an ear-splitting scream came from Fu's room. Faster than the Hirishin, Naruto was at the door. He turned the knob, glad he left it unlocked from the night before, and came upon a sight that nearly made him rocket back from a nosebleed. Fu was sitting on the bed with the sheets pulled around her waist. Apparently one of the girls had undressed her and she was wearing only her panties, although it seemed there was a destroyed bra on the bed. Now, normally, Naruto wouldn't be quite so affected because he had seen his other girls' bodies and it would help. However, Fu's breasts had enlarged, ridiculously so. Hell, Naruto guessed they were only slightly smaller than Tsunade's own. As a male, I am making assumptions on cup sizes, thank you. Naruto grabbed his nose and turned around, just as his girls all came barreling down the hallway and into the room before stopping dead. Fu looked up and noticed Naruto before blushing a deep crimson, realizing she must have given him an inadvertent peek at her new female additions. Nanabe. Do you know anything about this? She roared in her mind as her hands absent-mindedly roamed over her new plushy tits. Yawn, yeah, thank me later. I'm tired. Night, the Nanbai said tiredly before falling back asleep. Fu noticed her hands ramming and immediately grabbed the sheets and started fussing with them instead. The girls all stared in shock. Yesterday she had small B cups, now she was pushing F cups for Kami's sake. Fu, still blushing, looked at the girls. I need help. Nanabe did this, she said timidly. Hikari shook her head and clapped her hands, gaining everyone's attention. Okay, Naruto-kun, go get Tsunade, we are going to need her for this. Kushina, you're the best cook, so go make some breakfast while we get her set up and wait for Tsunade so we can get some new clothes and bras for her, she said, getting nods from the girls and Naruto disappearing. Not even 5 minutes later, Naruto had returned with Tsunade, who was grumbling at being woken up at 9:30 in the morning. Tsunade rubbed the sleep from her eyes before having them widen as she took in Fu's new form. She turned and glared at Naruto. "Out," she yelled, pushing him out the door and shutting it. She swiftly activated some medical jutsu and went to ensure that Fu's sudden growth wasn't detrimental to her health. After several minutes and different jutsus, she stood up smiling warmly. "You are fine. Your body has adjusted well to the sudden change. I have to assume this has something to do with your tenant, or you were hiding them," she said, giving Fu a slight glare. Fu blushed. "It was Nanabe-kun. He said to thank him later," she said timidly. Tsunade chuckled and shook her head. "I'll bring a few of my old bras over until I can get her to my personal bra maker. Although, she's going to need new tops to accommodate her assets," she said as she noticed the gleams in several of the girls' eyes. She quickly divested herself of her current bra and gave it to Fu, who blushed but nodded thankfully and put it on. Hikari squealed. "Shopping," she yelled as she glomped Fu. The girls all giggled at her antics, and the blush of embarrassment on Fu's face. Tsunade smirked. Yes, try the store on the Yondame Avenue. They sell extra-large tops for girls who are larger than even the well-endowed women," she said, smirking before shining away to begin her day. The other girls pouted slightly at Tsunade's words as Naruto walked in. He noticed their frowns, and Fu's blush before sighing. "If any of you are worried about her new assets, don't. Each of you are special in your own ways, and I want you all to get along," he said, smiling warmly at them. Most of the girls brightened at this, but Hana smirked devilishly before turning into a seductive smile. "Oh? And how are we each special?" she asked, eyeing him. The girls all caught on and gave him looks promising pain, minus Fu, who was still embarrassed at her new additions, and what was being said in her new room. "Well." Naruto straightened to sweat, before gulping, and deciding to get it over with. "Hana has the most perfect ass I've ever seen. Hikari just screams sexy all the time, and they both have a wild aura to them. Amaterasu has a nice ass as well, but she's got a more mature and sophisticated feel to her. Yujito, well, her body is slim and streamlined, something that makes me wanna just rub myself against it again and again. Kushina's hair is just magnificent, especially since it goes to her ass. I just want it to splay out behind her when she cuddles with me on the bed. And Fu, well, aside from the new assets, her orange pools make me wanna just stare forever, and her legs seem to stretch for miles. Simply put, you are all beautiful in your own ways," he said, smiling softly at them, as each blushed at the mention of their own names. "Of course, that's only the physical things," he added, not wanting them to think that is all he saw. Hana sauntered up to him and grabbed his head before pulling him into a searing kiss, much to the other girls' disappointment as she acted first, and Fu's embarrassment. Hana and Naruto broke, panting for air as Hana smirked at him. "Good answer, Naruto-kun. Now go check on breakfast while we get Fu-chan ready for our shopping trip," she said. Naruto paled, as the girls grinned devilishly, before bowing his head and handing his wallet to Hana. "Yes ma'am," he said dejectedly as he walked out. The girls all giggled, even Fu, as they saw Naruto walk away like a kicked dog. Fu smiled softly. "You girls have him whipped, huh?" she asked. Hikari giggled again. "Only on stuff like this. Don't let him fool you though. He'll spend as much money as you want as long as it brings a smile to your face," she said as she fingered the silver bracelet with a fox with ruby eyes and a golden wolf on it. Yujito chuckled. "Indeed," she said before pulling out her own necklace and showing it to the shocked Fu. "He doesn't spare expense if you really want it," she added, smiling softly. Hana shook her head. "Quit showing off Naruto-kun's gifts. Hikari, can you go get one of your tops? I think you might have the best chance of fitting her," she said as she eyed Fu critically. Hikari nodded and disappeared. Hana smirked at Fu. "Now, let's get breakfast and then we go shopping," she said happily as she waved Naruto's wallet in the air. Time skip, 2 weeks, October 9th, Hokage office. True to Tsunade's words, the store had sold many type of tops, but Fu had opted for keeping her look and simply gotten larger versions of her kunoichi gear, and several different tops for civilian use. Naruto had promised Fu the protection of the Uzumaki, and soon Namikaze, clans, whether she decided to be one of his lovers or not. Luckily, Fu fit in quite well, seemingly making friends with all the girls, and was often seen chatting with Yujito or Kushina. Naruto had asked his sensei for a favor. Fu needed real training in her element, namely water. Her taijutsu was unfixable in the current time frame, so ninjutsu was her best bet. Luckily, both Shino and Ino were receiving training from their families for their performance in the preliminaries, thereby freeing up Yamato to teach Fu some more water techniques and even some elemental manipulation. Naruto had also given her a resistance seal, currently at level 2, so as to help train her speed a bit. Speaking of Naruto, he focused on the Huten Mitsurugi Ryu sword style and was declared passable by his crimson-haired girlfriend. She had upgraded him to a weighted bukin and was currently teaching him 3 attacks to the style Ryutsuzan, Dragon Hammer Strike, Ryushosen, Soaring Dragon Flight, and Soryusen, Twin Dragon Strike, each which was powerful in its own right. He hadn't really trained much in other things, sans his chakra control which Tsunade had continued to oversee. He was currently at about mid-Umbu level and it probably wouldn't get much higher. He kept his resistance seal at level 10 after finding that going any higher than that put an incredible strain on his bones. Naruto had been training quite hard lately, and lost track of the days. Unbeknownst to him, however, 2 things were going on today that would affect him greatly. The first was a certain feral lady's plans for his birthday tomorrow, that had already been approved by Naruto's various lovers/girlfriends, and, the second, a meeting that was currently ongoing in the Hokage office. Tsunade sat in the Hokage chair, with Shizune standing to her right, as Sarutobi sat in front of her and Jiraiya leaning against the wall. "So, did it work?" she asked, eyeing her teammate. Jiraiya smirked, "All according to plan. Based on the report from Naruto and Yamato, I was able to leak the information that Naruto is the Namikaze heir to the Bolt team that is on the council's payroll, and that he is very attracted to, perverted giggle, big breasts. He is, also, best friends with Shino Abarame, who is currently dating the heir to the Hyuga clan, who happens to be the girl they attempted to kidnap at age 4. Who knows what Naruto would do to Kumo considering his current lovers, Yujito, and best friend's possible wife, Hinata, have been severely harmed by Kumagakuer," he said. Tsunade sighed at his giggle but let it slide in the interest of getting her godson another loving, big-breasted, wife, and maybe some support for Yujito and, by extension, Fu. "Good. Let's activate that seal, shall we?" she asked, smirking devilishly as she pulled out the crystal ball. The other occupants of the room gathered around and giggled mischievously. It was good to play matchmaker. Kumo council room, same time. The council was in an uproar, and he was debating on just killing them all. Somehow they had gotten their hands on information confirming that Naruto was, in fact, the son of the Yondaime Hokage of Konoha, and they wanted to set up a political marriage to appease him so that he wouldn't seek retribution for their slights against the people he cares about. Unfortunately, they were also suggesting that Yujito's mission wasn't going well and that they should recall her and set up a marriage with Samui. It would be a 2-shot win for them as Yujito would return without much help and Samui would leave, taking away one of the few bastions of safety for the Jinhiriki. He sighed again as Samui looked livid from the sidelines. "Enough," he yelled, causing everyone to quiet down. "Now, let's hear options," he ordered. The fat merchant, Manabu, stood up. "It's very simple. Obviously, the Nibi Jinhiriki cannot satisfy the Namikaze heir. She should be recalled immediately, and Samui-san, since it is rumored that he cares for big breasts and that his newest woman has suddenly gained breasts to rival Samui's own, along with one of our top kunoichi, should take her place," he stated pompously. He shook his head. "That's not an option. You watched the Chunin preliminaries, same as everyone here. If he would destroy a Jounin for just looking at a girl he barely knows, what do you think he would do to us should we rip Yujito away from him? No need to answer." He added seriously. Rakuto stood this time, cutting off Manabu before he destroyed their planning. "Ah, good point, Raikage-sama, but, if we have her break up with him, he would be mad at her, and not us. We then simply say we captured her and train her to be his loyal slave. I'm sure a distinguished man like Namikaze-sama wouldn't mind having a loyal slave to boss around when he has to deal with all of his future wives," he said. He once again shook his head. "When we got word that Yujito was in Konoha, myself, my brother, and his team all went there. I'm sure you remember this," he said, gaining nods from the council members. "We met with the man you are talking about, and let me just say." His eyes became dark and his chakra flared violently around him. "Naruto would kill you if that happened," he said darkly. The council members gulped as he regained his composure. "Now, Yujito is well ingrained in Naruto's circle. She has been sending reports to me and letters to each of her loved ones here, letting us know how she's doing and how well she is getting along with Naruto. Simply put, I have no doubt that she is both happy and will soon cement herself as one of Naruto's wives, he said, gaining varying signs of approval from his council. However, since you seem so dead set on sending someone as a political marriage, I will entertain ideas on that only. Yugito's mission stands, he said with no room for debate. The council grumbled and was silent for a moment before Fumio stood. I believe we should send a kunoichi who is steadfastly loyal to Kumo and would make Naruto think twice about attacking her hometown. Someone who can manipulate him into caring about her more than about Konoha and ensure that he never attacks Kumo despite what his village may ask, he said. Most of the council members were nodding in agreement, and Samui noticed this before a devious smirk made its way to her face. This way, I can be with Yugito Nachan again and maybe see if that man is really worth the information I gave him, she thought before standing. Honorable council members, she said, gaining their attention. I would like to ask to be put in this marriage, she said, making two of them. Fumio and Rikuto narrow their eyes, along with E. They all wondered what she was up to. I have always been loyal to Kumo and I am close to Yugito-san. Many know of my cold and calculating demeanor. In this case, I would be the best choice, she said. The council looked leery, and Manabu sneered at her. You care more for that Jinhiriki than you do for Kumo. How would you be the best choice? He asked heatedly. Samui smirked devilishly. Simple. I have the largest bust of all our kunoichi, I am a very strong chunin, almost jounin level, and if you look at his track record, he has only strong women by his side. Aside from that, while I do care for Yugito-san, I can also manipulate both her and Naruto-san into not attacking Kumo out of a sense of nostalgia for both myself and Yugito. In effect, you would have not one kunoichi stopping Naruto-san, but two, she said, still smirking. Fumio and Rikuto mentally cursed as he smirked as well. Many of the council nodded in agreement and he jumped on this opportunity. All those who believe Samui Nii should be married to Naruto Namikaze for the betterment of our relations with Konoha, please raise your hands now, he said. 22 hands went up, and 3 stayed down. I's smirk turned into a full-blown grin. Very well, during the Chunin exam finals, I, and her team, shall escort Samui-san to Konohagakure to give her to Naruto Namikaze in marriage, he said. Most of the council sighed in relief, with the 3 plotters gritting their teeth, as Samui and her team left, followed soon by a loud squeal of joy as Samui got to be with her sister again. Killer B and E just smirked again. Back in Konoha, the Hokage's office was a small party as the 4 drank to Samui's fine maneuvering right into their plan. Next morning, Namikaze Estates, Naruto's birthday. Naruto's groaned slightly as he awoke. He blinked his eyes as he realized there was no one in his bed. That was highly unusual as the girls almost always either fell asleep with him or crawled into bed during the night. He heard his bathroom door open and close, so he turned to see a smirking Hana in a bathrobe. Good morning, Naruto-kun. How did you sleep? She asked. Naruto blinked as the only girls who really slept with him, or came into his room, were the ones he had already claimed as his mates. Hana was new. I slept fine, thanks for asking. What's going on? He asked curiously. Hana's cheeks took a light tint as she approached the bed. Do you know what day it is, Naruto-kun? She asked as she stopped by the bedside, causing Naruto to sit up, revealing he slept with only boxers on. Naruto's head cocked to the side as he let his celestial features show, forcing Hana to ruthlessly pummel her kawaii reflex. No, what's today? He asked, completely oblivious. Hana smirked seductively. Why, it's your birthday, Naruto-kun, she said sweetly, causing Naruto's eyes to go wide as he realized he forgot his own birthday. However, that paled in comparison to what happened next. Hana dropped the bathrobe covering her body and smiled lustfully. I'm here to give you your birthday presents, she said hotly. Lemon warning. Youngsters, pass to the next bold line please. Naruto's eyes immediately went wide as he took in what she was wearing. To put it simply, she had gift-wrapped herself. She had wrapped her breasts loosely in bright red ribbons that ended with 2 bows tied neatly over her tits. Her stomach was smooth and clear of blemishes, but when he reached her waist it too was wrapped in red ribbons, some around her waist that ended in a bow on her ass, not that he could see it yet, and 2 lengths wrapped around her thighs that ended with another bow over her pussy. Naruto's jaw dropped and Hana both blushed and giggled. Glad you like it, but wouldn't you rather unwrap your presents? She asked seductively. Naruto came back to reality and smiled at his newest lover. Are you sure you want to do this? He asked. Hana growled softly, just get over here and take me, she said, letting her feral instincts take over as she had wanted Naruto to mark her for nearly a month. Naruto blinked before appearing behind Hana and pushing her onto the bed. She let loose a squeak of surprise and turned over only to find herself being fiercely kissed by her lover. Hana's eyes became heavy and lidded as she let Naruto explore her mouth and rub his morning wood between her legs. She smirked as Naruto pulled back and began to kiss across her cheek and down her neck, sucking hard on her collarbone, leaving a hickey at the spot he would mark later. He soon reached her breasts and began to unravel them. Not too long afterwards, he held her right breast softly in his hands as he kneaded the soft flesh, causing Hana to let loose a soft moan. He smirked and took the nipple into his mouth, sucking and nipping it, as his hands went to work to release the other succulent fruit that Naruto wished to taste. Hana moaned loudly as he began to lavish his attention on her nipple, grabbing his head and running her hands through his fingers through his hair and over his ears as she felt herself get wetter and wetter as Naruto finally unraveled her other breast and switched nipples, leaving her right breast to his agile fingers as he began to moisten Hana's other sensitive bud. Naruto smirked around Hana's other nipple as he smelled her arousal and felt her grabbing fists of his hair and rubbing his ears, which, it turned out, was an erogenous zone for him. He felt his cock getting harder and harder to the point it was almost painful before letting go over Hana's nipple, causing her to gasp as the cold air hit her once warm bud, and moving downstairs. He quickly divested her of the ribbons hiding her moistened love hole, only to stop and stare in shock and love. Hana blushed as she realized why he stopped, even though she wanted him to get onto the main event. "Do you like it?" she asked shyly. Naruto blinked away a few tears as he looked again at the tattoo on his woman's inner thighs. On her right was Naruto's bitch, and on the left was a picture of a golden wolf with its nose pointing to her pussy. "You did this for me?" he asked, surprised. Hana giggled, "Of course. Anko has her tattoo. I just wanted something to show you that I love you," she said warmly, before she smirked seductively, "and to show you where to put that third leg that's going to make me pass out from pleasure," she said. Naruto chuckled as he bent down to go eat her out, until Hana grabbed his head and glared at him. "No more foreplay. The unwrapping was nice, but I'm sure you want the meat of your present now, don't you?" she asked with lust in her voice. Naruto resisted the urge to sweat drop and instead kissed her passionately as he lined himself up with her entrance. He pulled back and she nodded to him. "I don't have a hymen, but I've never had sex before," she informed him, causing him to nod, before slowly inserting himself, causing her to gasp in both pain and pleasure. Hana dug her nails into his back as he finally bottomed out inside of her, while he gently began to knead her breasts. She may not have a hymen, but damn she was tight. Hana growled softly as she felt the pain subside and began to rock her hips against Naruto's own, trying to increase the delicious friction between their bodies. Naruto got the hint and began to pull inches out of himself before pushing back in. Hana moaned as he finally pulled 7 inches out before slamming back into her tight sheath. His cock was huge. The biggest Hana had ever heard of, and definitely bigger than those toys she used to use on herself. She could feel him picking up speed, and his cock giving off heat as he pulled nearly all of himself out before pushing himself back in and hitting her G-spot along the way. She threw her head back and let loose a howl at the pleasure, causing Naruto to falter in his thrusts. She glared at him. "Don't stop," she yelled as she rocked her hips. Naruto, while still a bit shocked, once again slammed his cock into her tight love canal and moaned loudly with his newest lover. All of his girls thus far had been special in their own right, and Hana was no exception. While she hadn't been entirely too wet to begin with, she was now gushing like a fire hydrant. He could feel her juices being secreted onto his cock and that some of it was being forced out with each thrust, traveling down his balls, soaking them in her juices, before landing on the bed, staining the sheets with her essence. He felt his cock slide in and out of her with almost no resistance, although that didn't mean the heat from his frenzied pace wasn't pleasurably rising in Hana's sex, giving rise to a slow, but powerful, orgasm. "Faster and Naruto-kun. I want you to pound me," Hana yelled as she felt the knot in her stomach twist. Naruto grunted as he picked up his pace. "Geez Hana, you're so wet. I'm gonna do something I couldn't with my other mates," he said, causing her to look him in the eyes as her body shifted with every thrust, causing her breasts to jiggle playfully on her chest. "I'm gonna fuck you full speed," he said, smirking as he stopped going at a civilian pace and began to fuck her ninja style, fucking her cunt deep and hard, using her lubrication to the fullest as it kept them from getting friction burns, and allowing them to really let loose. Hana screamed in pleasure as 7 seconds later she orgasmed, hard and powerful, from Naruto's sudden furious pace. She felt her pussy contract around Naruto's meat and begin to gush out her cum in large quantities, almost equal to Naruto's own load. Speaking of Naruto's load, Hana was highly aware of the hot cum that poured into her womb, extending her orgasm as it had all of Naruto's other mates. She felt her pussy milking his cock for the precious milk that she had come to want, and she was not denied as she felt her womb full almost halfway before it tapered off. She felt Naruto bite her collarbone, with her returning the action, before resting on top of her own body, both enjoying post-orgasmic bliss. Naruto had set a blistering pace after telling Hana he would fuck her full speed, and he had, within his own reason, as he didn't want it to be over too quick. Needless to say, his pace was very much enjoyed by his feral lover as she screamed in pleasure. He felt her love canal tighten considerably, signifying her own orgasm, as he felt his own balls churn and begin to supply his mate with the liquid she worked so hard to get. He felt his cum travel into her womb and paint it white, but he was more aware of the significant amount of liquid that gushed from his lover's pussy and against his balls, truly soaking them in her essence, when she orgasmed. He ignored it as he felt his end approaching and bit down on her collarbone, watching only for a second before the golden wolf appeared, and collapsing on his newest lover. "I never knew you were a gusher, Inuheim," Naruto said as he extracted himself from his lover and subtly moved his hands up and down her body as he felt his cock hardening again. He bent forward slowly. "Nonetheless, you are mine now," he whispered softly. Hana blushed. "Sorry. I should have told you. I'll get you some new sheets when we're done," she said softly. Naruto frowned and suddenly stuck 2 fingers in her sopping wet cunt, which had begun to create more juices which were flowing down her thighs. "Now who said you could take my sheets away? I happen to like the smell, and I hope to have it totally ingrained in the sheets by the time you're passed out from pleasure," she said lustfully as his 2 fingers spread her juices all over her pussy lips, making them sticky and wet. "You're so wet, Hana-chan, perhaps you wish to continue," he whispered into her ear, causing her to shiver with unrestrained lust. Naruto, however, was surprised when she suddenly pushed him towards the foot of the bed. He blinked before looking at her, only to see her smirking over her shoulder, her body in the doggy position and her hands holding the headboard. The bow on her ass was proudly displayed. "Come on, Naruto-kun, we aren't done yet," she said seductively. Naruto smirked as he lined himself up with her slit once again, rubbing himself up and down her lips, causing her to moan in excitement as she wanted to be taken hard and fast, just like before. "Good, I'll make sure you pass out from pleasure before we are done," he said forcefully as he impaled himself into his newest lover's tight canal. Naruto didn't waste any time as he began to pound Hana's pussy as he had done not too long ago. Only this time, his thrusts had far more power, and were throwing Hana into a frenzy of lust, not that she minded. "Okami, yes. Fuck my pussy. Make me your bitch, Naruto-kun." Hana yelled in ecstasy as she felt Naruto pound harder and harder into her slick pussy. Naruto happily complied and continued his frantic pace, her pussy juices once again staining his balls and the sheets beneath him. He caught on to the little game she wanted to play, so he smacked her ass. "Whose bitch are you?" he asked as he thrust particularly hard into Hana's tight hole. Hana wasted not time in answering as she yelled, "Yours. Yours forever, just keep fucking me," as she started rocking her hips back into his own, increasing the pleasure felt by both lovers. Naruto felt his own end nearing, but took notice of something else. Hana's ass bow was soaked. He quickly grew his nails and swiped them through the bandages, only to come face to ass with Hana's slick asshole. Maybe it's got something to do with dogs and wolves," he asked himself as he saw a drop of the liquid mix with Hana's juices on his cock. He suddenly smirked as he retracted his claws and stuck 2 fingers in Hana's ass. He got the reaction he was looking for, along with his own orgasm. Hana was on cloud 9 as she felt Naruto plunge his well-endowed cock into her abused pussy again and again. She had no problem submitting to him. Hell, she had been the one to call herself a bitch first, but only for her Naruto-kun. She had been a bit surprised when he had cut the ribbons from her ass, but hadn't really expected anything until he'd shoved 2 finger into her lubricated asshole, thereby causing an unforeseen, and totally welcomed, blinding orgasm. Naruto grunted as Hana's pussy contracted violently around his cock, triggering an orgasm as he howled to the heavens about his pleasure. His cum spurted in thick streams into his lover's womb, truly filling it to the brim and making it expand slightly. He felt her juices splash against his hips and balls, drenching them in her essence and causing him to smell her arousal all the more clearly, while her ass tightly clenched the 2 fingers inside her second hole. He felt her relax and her body fall to the bed, clearly spent from the orgasm as she breathed heavily, her skin covered in a light sheen of sweat. Hana, however, was seeing spots in her vision once Naruto had invaded her ass. Her pussy convulsed violently against Naruto's cock, easily obtaining the desired seed to fill her womb, as his ass clenched around the 2 fingers in her ass. She moaned loudly as she felt her womb expand slightly to accommodate her lover's cream, and she happily noted that she was now full. She felt her pussy and anus relax, before dropping to the bed, exhausted from the intense orgasm that came with having her ass invaded while her pussy was being reamed by her lover. Naruto chuckled, full of surprises today. First you're a gusher, now you love anal. Next I'll find you love to scream, he said smirking. Hana half glared at him, still panting slightly. That was low. And I still have another round, so don't you go nowhere yet, mister, she growled as she saw Naruto shift in the bed. Naruto eyed her curiously. You look tired to me, we can continue tonight Inuheim, he said, before finding himself being licked and stroked by the feral woman. She stopped licking to give him a glare, still stroking his hardening erection. You are going to fuck my ass, or I'll have the girls avoid you for a week, she threatened. Naruto gulped. Yes ma'am, he said, hanging his head in defeat. Hana chuckled as she got into the doggy position once again, shaking her now revealed, and wet, ass at her lover. Come on, I wanna feel you again, and the girls are waiting downstairs for breakfast, she said smirking. Naruto chuckled as he placed his erection against her ass, rubbing it between her ass cheeks a few times to ensure he was fully erect before spreading her cheeks and slowly descending into his mate's ass. Hana actually moaned as he pressed inch after inch into her tight asshole, enjoying being penetrated in her ass as much as she did her pussy. As he finally bottomed out, Hana let loose a low howl of pleasure. Kami, this feels awesome, she said breathlessly. Naruto grunted in pleasure. Why yeah. Damn, your ass is tight, Hana-chan, he said as he felt her sphincter grip his cock. Hana half glared at him, but it was destroyed by her giggle as she ground her ass against his hips. You feel pretty good too, Naruto-kun. Now fuck me, she responded. Naruto smirked as he took that as a sign to continue and pulled some of his cock out only to slam it back into her ass, causing her to moan aloud and for Naruto to be spurred on. He was soon fucking her ass with the same abandon that he had when he originally was fucking her pussy. He didn't want to go at a blistering pace as it seemed her ass was not quite as lubricated as her pussy. He grunted with each thrust as his balls slapped against her pussy and her juices dripped down her thighs to create even more stains on the sheets below. Hana thrust her ass back more and more to meet Naruto's thrusts. Kami, there was some for you to my ass and SSY at the same time. Hana said as she met Naruto thrust for thrust. Naruto's eyes suddenly took on his famous prankster glint. Hana moaned in disapproval as she felt Naruto's cock disappear from her rear end. Naruto kyuyuyun, she whined, as she looked over her shoulder. Why'd you stop? She said as her eyes became wide. She suddenly screamed in ecstasy as both her holes were filled to the brim with Naruto's well-endowed cocks. Naruto had altered his Warrick no Jutsu long ago, and knew it was a physical change. So, all he had done, was simply apply that to his body and added another dick, sprouting from below his current one, and applied it to Hana's open pussy. She obviously had no complaints by the way she was screaming to the heavens in pleasure. Naruto picked up the pace and could feel that he wouldn't last long with the pleasure input from both his cocks. Oh yes. Harder, Naruto-kun, harder. I love it. I love you. Hana yelled in pleasure. Hana was truly living in heaven and singing with the angels as she felt her ass and pussy be thoroughly used by Naruto's cocks. She had been disappointed when he stopped, but finding out that he had granted her wish to be double penetrated had been more than enough to make up for it. She felt her own end nearing, with her ass and pussy convulsing around Naruto's cocks, which she felt were hardening, as sure sign he was about to orgasm, and screamed in ecstasy as his cock hit her G-spot and caused her to crash into orgasmic bliss. Naruto howled out loud as his orgasm hit, and he filled his lover's pussy to the brim with cum, while simultaneously pumping a large amount into her, previously, virgin ass. Her pussy was gushing, as usual, but her ass was a new experience. It tightened considerably around the base of his cock, and at several other spots along his length, but not around the whole thing. Not that it did anything to prohibit his orgasm. Hell, her ass massaged the parts it did constrict, almost like it craved his seed like her womb did. Naruto didn't really care why, all he knew was that he was certainly doing that again. Maybe with Hikari and Anko together, he thought as he felt Hana collapse. Well, I did make her pass out, he thought with some pride. Hana's eyes rolled into her head as he pussy and ass clenched around Naruto's twin cocks. She felt as he womb expanded again to accommodate his seed, and she felt her ass massage Naruto's dick as it spewed its contents deep into her rectum. She moaned aloud as she felt her own orgasm hit, and extend as his cum hit her insides, sending warmth throughout her body until she felt darkness overtake her. Her last thought was, definitely a third leg to make me pass out from bliss, as she thought of Naruto's cock before passing into the warm dark of a pleasure sensory overload. End lemon. It's okay to read now. Naruto sighed as he covered Hana, deciding to let her sleep here for now. He admired his mark on her neck before heading to the bathroom and doing his morning rituals before checking his own mark. Where, before, there was a hydra, a fox, and a wolf, there was now an added orange dog with several spots. A painted dog, Naruto noted with amusement. It was curled up with the wolf in the center, with the hydra and fox surrounding it against the backdrop of a sun. Naruto chuckled, it was beautiful, and he wouldn't have it any other way. He finished up and headed downstairs. It was time to meet the rest of his family for his birthday. Namikaze Estates, noon, downstairs. Hikari tapped her foot as the girls all waited patiently. They had all agreed to let Hana give him her present first as she wanted it to be special. Besides, they could tell he forgot his birthday, and what a perfect way to remember, waking up to one of your lovers giving herself to you as a present. Speaking of the girls, following Hana's little question the other day, all of them, Fu included, had either noticed their jealousy, or had been called on it in a few cases. Afterwards, the girls had come to a sort of silent agreement, while jealousy was understandable, never let it fester. Each of them were friends, and letting the others know about their insecurities would, in turn, let everyone know which subjects were not to be discussed in the presence of others. For example, Hana had the lowest bust size and she was a bit self-conscious about it, so talking about bust sizes around her was a bad subject. Same thing with Anko and dirty talking in the bedroom. Being called whore and slut in public had done much harm to her triggers, and saying them around her was very strenuous to say the least. Just to name a few. Her ears perked up, as did everyone else's, as they looked to the stairs only to see Naruto coming downstairs in his usual black outfit with the trench coat open and his extra features in plain view. He smiled at his girls as he saw the big banner saying, "Happy birthday Naruto-kun," along with each of them yelling it, and each of them holding gifts. He shook his head. "You didn't have to do this, girls," he said. Hikari pouted, as did Anko. "Of course we did. You deserve a good birthday." Speaking of which, Hikari smirked devilishly. "Did you enjoy your first gift?" she asked, getting blushes from Fu and Kushina. Naruto chuckled. "I did. The first, and second, and third, well, you get the picture," he said, smirking cockily. All of the girls sported huge blushes as they thought, "Damn, that could have been me," before shaking their heads to clear them of dirty thoughts. Amaterasu cleared her throat. "Come on, why don't you come open the gifts," she said, motioning to the sofa. The girls all got excited looks in their eyes, even Fu. Naruto chuckled and took a seat. Hikari smirked and stepped forward. "I'll go first. I thought about what you like, and what you need, so I decided to get you something you can use for recreational purposes," she said, pulling out 2 packages. She handed them to Naruto, who smiled and nodded in thanks before opening them. One was a brand new MP3 player, straight from the land of snow, and the other were some skull candy earphones. Naruto smiled and hugged his alpha. "Thanks, Hikari-chan," he said, placing the gift to his side. Anko jumped up and down. Me next," she said before practically bowling Hikari over, who glared slightly at her harem sister. She handed him a wrapped package. "Here, I made this for you," she said softly. Naruto raised an eyebrow and opened it, only to gasp, along with everyone else. It was a trench coat, almost the same as his, except that it had a mesh inlay for defense, and on the back, in bright gold, was the kanji for Niidame Kiroi Senko no Kana Hagakur. "I made it myself. I just thought you should have something like your dad's since you wanna follow in his footsteps," she said softly. Naruto jumped up and kissed her quickly. "This is awesome, Hidori-hime. I can't wait to see the look on their faces when I wear this to the finals," he said excitedly, causing all the girls to smirk. Anko blushed slightly as this was the first time they had ever given Naruto a real gift, and she was glad he liked it so much. Yujito giggled. Can I go now, Anko-chan? She asked. Anko nodded as Naruto took a seat again. Before Yujito stood in front of him. You helped me a lot, Naruto-kun, and I can't ever repay you. So, I have a twofold gift for you today, she said, pulling out a scroll. This is a scroll with 1,000 of your Hiraishin Kunao. I hope you can use them well, she said, giving them to a gawking Naruto. The materials for the Kunao were rather expensive and 1,000 would put a decent dent into Naruto's own savings. He looked up as Yujito smirked and was enveloped in a flash of light. Naruto suddenly found himself being held by two very beautiful women, both near identical. One, however, had the ears and tail of a lion, with red tips, while the other had two tails and had blue hair/fur. Yujito, who had the lion attributes, smirked. Kiyomi-chan is my best friend, and new sister, so I'd like to be the one who says, when we decide to go further, you get Nibi as well. We share everything and I don't plan on you being the exception, she said. Naruto nearly frowned until Kiyomi purred before grabbing his head and kissing him fiercely. I'm gonna enjoy taking turns with Yujito-chan. There's no way you're leaving the bedroom until you pass out from exhaustion, she said seductively. Yujito sighed, as all the girls just giggled perversely at the thought of Naruto dropping from sexual exhaustion. She bopped Kiyomi on the head. Later, you horny cat, she said sternly, causing Kiyomi's ears to droop, until they both got off of Naruto and she walked happily over to Hikari, who eyed her up and down, before nodding and glomping her. Welcome to the club, Kiyomi-chan, she said happily. Nice name, by the way. I thought you didn't have a human form though, she asked, getting everyone's attention. Kiyomi nodded. Well, Yujito-chan has always been nice to me, so I tried her body and it stuck. Besides, I've always wanted to actually be there for her, not just mentally. Being with Naruto-kun is just a bonus, she said smirking. Naruto shook his head. I'm beginning to think I attract girls like honey attracts bears, he said softly. Luckily, none of the girls were listening to him. Amaterasu cleared her throat. I'll go next, she said, gaining everyone's attention. Naruto nodded and Amaterasu pulled out a scroll. This is a scroll I. Ahem, obtained from Susanoo. It contains 5 Ranton release jutsu. I know you only have 2 currently, so this may flesh you out a bit, she said smiling. She didn't mention that she really just snuck into Susanoo's realm and stole the scroll. Naruto beamed at her. This will be useful, thanks Ami-chan, he said, causing her to smile as well. They heard thumping coming from the stairs and turned to see a glowing Hana land on the ground floor, obviously sore from her escapades. Ow! Naruto-kun. Come carry me, she whined. Naruto chuckled and shook his head as she held her arms out like a child. Naruto walked over and picked her up, before laying her on the bed. Amaterasu immediately began to heal her sore muscles so she could participate in the celebration. Fu nervously stepped forward and held out her own gift. I am new here, so all I could get you was an all-you-can-eat coupon for one sitting at Ichiraku Ramen. Sorry, she said softly. Naruto glomped her. That's my favorite place to eat. Yahoo! He said, twirling the big-breasted Nanobijin hierarchy around. Fu giggled at his antics before stepping back. All eyes went to Kushina as she stepped forward holding a long thin package. I think our family would have wanted you to have this, Naruto-kun. Its name is Tsunami no Nami, Tsunami's wave, she said, handing him the package, along with glares from Hikari and Anko. Naruto ripped the paper from the blade to reveal a sea blue scabbard and hilt. He slowly drew the blade, and watched as it appeared, inch by inch, before him. It had a slight blue hint to the blade, but the thing that put it apart was the deep blue waves that seemed to flow from the hilt to the tip of the katana. Amazing! Naruto said softly. Yes. It is said that only a celestial or demonic weapon could harm this weapon. It is the prized possession of the Uzumaki royal family. Kushina replied. Naruto shifted his gaze to her as he sheathed the blade. Then why aren't you using it? He asked. Kushina shifted her eyes to the side. I believe you are a better wielder for it. My current blade, the aka Shinku, is what I have been using for years. I am used to it, she answered. Naruto narrowed his eyes. That answers that you want me to have it, but not why you don't want to use it, he replied. Kushina sighed. I would really rather not say, she said with a tone of trepidation. The rest of the girls narrowed their eyes as well. I would still like to know why, Kushina. Naruto replied. Kushina hung her head, seemingly thinking for a few moments before she spoke in a low voice. This blade has been passed from parent to child in our family for generations. Naruto narrowed his eyes. I never got a chance to use it myself since my parents could not present me with the blade and, as such, it will not accept me as its master." She paused before continuing, "I do not want the sword to become a mere artifact within some pompous bastard's house, but also, it has a unique ability, which can be activated. I believe it would serve you well. That is why I wanted to give it to you," she said with slight hope in her voice, but also some hesitancy. Naruto eyed her for a moment before speaking. "What's its ability?" he asked with slight excitement in his voice. Hikari and Anko frowned as they noticed his tone. Kushina's hope increased slightly. "There are really two abilities. For both, you have to channel chakra into the blade. The first is to create a wave of water from your chakra. The more chakra, the bigger the wave. It's used to set the stage for water ninjutsu, seeing as most Uzumaki were strong water types. The second, and far more useful, is a healing blade," she said, shocking those present. "If you channel chakra into the hilt specifically, a green aura will appear around the blade and heal almost any injury. However, the graver the injury, the more downtime. The thing is, if you use it to heal, like say, a cut, then it would be stuck in the healing phase for the next hour, a finger, maybe 3, a life-threatening injury, always a day," she explained. There was silence for a moment before Naruto smirked and glomped Kushina. "Thanks so much, Kushina-chan. This blade is awesome," he said excitedly. Kushina smiled broadly and relaxed, whilst most of the girls, sans Hikari and Anko, just smiled as their man accepted the gift. Hana clapped her hands together, silencing everyone. "Let's eat, huh? I'm starved," she said happily. Everyone attributed it to the sex marathon she had that morning, and most were grumbling mentally about her being a lucky bitch, even if they had okayed it. In any case, the group moved to the kitchen and ate lunch, which was Kushina's ramen of course, and it was nearing 3 when they were all seated in the living room once again, chatting happily about random things. Amaterasu leaned forward. "Hey, Naruto, can I see your new blade?" she asked. Naruto nodded and handed her the blue weapon. Amaterasu slowly unsheathed it before whistling in appreciation. "This is one mighty fine blade. I doubt the Kusanagi could chip this thing, and I was doubting your words earlier, Kushina-chan," she said, admiring the workmanship and art on the blade. That caused Hikari to snap. "What's so great about a stupid blade?" she yelled, catching everyone's attention. "It was given to him by his mother who, might I add, was never here," she growled out as she glared at Kushina. Hana opened her mouth to try and stop the oncoming shitstorm, but Anko cut her off. "Yeah, who the hell do you think you are? You claim you wanna be his lover, but then give him gift only his mother could give him? I'm not gonna let you play with Naruto-kun's heart," she yelled as she stood, along with Hikari. They prepared to strike forward, with Kushina standing to defend herself when both girls found their mate marks burning uncomfortably. Everyone turned to see Naruto's golden chakra swirling around him angrily. "That eyes. Enough," he said calmly as he glared at his first two loves. Suddenly, they had a feeling they went too far. Naruto's eyes were an icy blue as he glared at his two first loves. He was not mad at them, never mad. His eyes shone with disappointment, and the two girls seemed to shrink under that gaze. They had never done anything to disappoint him before, maybe annoy him, but never on this scale. Naruto was in quite a bind. Kushina's gift, while controversial, was far too useful and thoughtful to be denied. He would never have the ability to heal his loved ones on his own, and the sword gave him that. However, his lovers obviously took it as a gift from a mother, and not as a fellow lover. Naruto was not blind. He noticed the way Hikari and Anko judged everything Kushina did, and he planned to address that, if it ever got to a point where it required him to step in. Naruto had fervently hoped Hikari and Anko could look past the exterior as they had done so many times and see Kushina as a fellow lover. Alas, it seemed Naruto had to settle the issue. He took a deep breath and calmed himself. "Hikari, Anko, listen to what I'm about to say carefully," he said, gaining everyone's attention. "You promised me to give Kushina-chan a chance, and you have not kept that promise," he said. The two girls opened their mouths, but never got the chance to object. "You have been judging her by mother standards from the day she first showed up. She was kind enough to cook for all of us considering none of us are good cooks, or have the time to cook. Sure, she fussed over me, but you girls all do the same. I am disappointed in you and have had enough," he said calmly. Hikari stepped forward. "And Naruto-kun," she started. Naruto shook his head. "No. I have allowed you to berate Kushina-chan for long enough. Until you can treat Kushina-chan the same way you treat Ami-chan, or Hana-chan, I wish for you to stay at the lab, he said completely serious. Hikari and Anko reeled from that. What? You want to throw us out because she broke the rules and acted like a mother? Anko yelled, her temper showing. Kushina glared, don't you accuse me of that. I wanted him to have the sword. He is entitled to it and it augments his abilities perfectly. The conditions suck, yes, but it's an Uzumaki sword and there's no way I'd let Naruto-kun go into battle without every possible advantage, she yelled. Hikari glared back at her, that's mothering. Why can't you just trust him to be fine, without having you watching over his shoulder, she yelled back. Kushina turned her glare to Hikari, so you're telling me that you've never mothered him a bit? I've seen Hana and Amaterasu take care of him the same as me. I just want him to be happy, and strong. There's no reason I should have to watch myself just because you might perceive the action as motherly, she screamed at her opponent. Naruto had allowed Kushina to defend herself, but this was getting a bit out of hand. That is, until Hana and Amaterasu stepped in and glared at their friends while Fu and Yujito stood next to Kushina. Naruto-kun asked you to do something. I suggest you do it. Hana said seriously as she stared down Anko. Anko opened her mouth to respond, but was interrupted by a bright flash of gold, and finding both herself and Hikari standing in Naruto's lab, with a very sullen Naruto in front of them. You have ignored me for the second time. Stay here, and think about what you have done. I love you, the same as I love Kushina, I don't want to lose any of you, but I won't let you blame her for something she couldn't control. If you come near the house, without making up with Kushina-chan. Naruto looked into their eyes, showing he was dead serious, and extremely sad, then I will lock you out, and you will have to either find another lover, or work your way back into my heart again, he said as he looked down, before adding, please don't make me lock you out, he pleaded softly, before disappearing in a golden flash. The two girls' jaws were on the floor, and were soon joined by their knees as they realized they had just hurt Naruto more than the villagers ever had. My Kami, what have we done? Hikari asked softly as the two began to sob quietly. Namikaze Estates, same time, Saturday. A scream of frustration was heard throughout the compound as Naruto appeared in the training grounds and punched a log, turning it into splinters. The other girls quickly came out of the house to see Naruto busting up his training ground. They looked on, both saddened and impressed by the sheer damage he inflicted on the barren patch of dirt. Saddened that his faith in Hikari and Anko had taken a blow, and impressed that he didn't just outright let loose and start throwing jutsu around. After nearly 10 minutes of senseless violence, Naruto took a shuddering breath and slumped to the ground, crying softly. Amaterasu and Hana immediately rushed to his side, with the other 4 girls not far behind. Naruto's 2 lovers fell to their knees beside him and started whispering soothing words into his ears. Kushina, Yujito, and Kiyomi watched the scene with some envy while Fu was said that she couldn't comfort him like he had comforted her. She honestly didn't know him well enough to really comfort him, unlike the other girls present. Naruto sniffed and wiped his eyes. Thanks girls, he said, smiling at his 2 lovers first, then at the others. He stood up and looked to Fu, seeing her nervousness, smiled, Fu-chan, you may not know me very well, but you are safe here. Please don't be nervous about approaching any of us, he said, smiling warmly at her. Fu returned his smile and Naruto nodded. With that said, I would like to get to know you better over dinner. May I ask you to grace me with your presence one day this week, he asked. Fu blushed bright red but nodded happily. Good. Friday 7 p.m. okay with you, he asked, to which he received another nod. Kushina felt a pang in her chest and looked down, until she found her chin being lifted by Naruto. I was trying to be nice and let Hikari and Anko settle with you a bit, but that doesn't seem possible. I know I haven't really approached you yet, and I wish to rectify that. Wednesday 7 p.m. as well. Would you honor me by being my date for the evening, he asked, smiling softly. Kushina's eyes went wide before she squealed in excitement and glomped Naruto, yelling, yes. Naruto, surprised by her actions, took a step back to brace himself, before he found himself being kissed by a very attractive redhead. Kushina realized what she did and swiftly backed up, blushing bright red just like Fu. The 4 non-blushing girls all chuckled in amusement, however Kiyomi pouted after that. I wanna kiss him like that too, she said childishly. Naruto blinked before disappearing and grabbing Kiyomi, kissing her too. Kiyomi blinked in surprise as they broke their kiss, before chuckling. Glad to see you accepted me so fast, she said smiling softly. Naruto nodded. Well, Yujito often spoke that you two were quite close, never mentioned you were gonna share me, but I can work with that, he said smiling as he stepped away from her. Hana cleared her throat, catching everyone's attention. As nice as all of this is, and I'm glad to see you handling Hikari and Anko so well, Naruto-kun, she said, getting a frown from Naruto. I wish to talk with the two of them about their actions, and I believe it would be beneficial if Kushina-chan were to talk to them as well, she said. Noticing Naruto opening his mouth, she quickly intercepted him, without you present. I believe they can work out their frustrations, but, with you running interference, they will never get the chance. Allow me and Ami-chan to work with them, she said with hope in her voice. Naruto was quiet for a moment, until Kushina spoke up. I think they are right, and I would like to work things out with them. Please let us work this out. I don't want you to lose them over me. As much as they may not like me, I respect them for their actions towards you, she said softly. Naruto sighed. I never can deny you girls. Alright, but if they can't work it out before the Chunin exam finals, I will have to take drastic measures, he answered, before looking right at Kushina, and don't think that I'm doing this just for you. While you are important, they are too blinded by their love to look past something that is out of your control. Maybe some time away will let them see more clearly, he said, getting a nod from Kushina. Happy smiles spread to the other girls' faces as they realized that Naruto didn't just protect them from outside threats, but from themselves as well. Wednesday, noon, Naruto's lab. Hikari and Anko had done exactly as Naruto had said, and thought through their actions. While they still believed that Kushina was overstepping her bounds, they could see that they may have overreacted. The girls had yet to visit them, but that would change today. Hana and Amaterasu were currently strolling towards the lab, intent on making the two women understand that their petty judgments about Kushina had hurt Naruto rather deeply. Thank goodness for having other girls to cheer him up though. The two friends soon arrived and knocked on the hidden door. Anko answered it, a bit surprised as they would usually just shun in. May we come in? Hana asked. Anko nodded and moved aside so they could step inside. Soon enough, the four friends, and Naruto lovers, were seated in Naruto's study, the same place Anko first met him. Hana looked to Amaterasu, who nodded. It would be best if we explain why we are here. Tonight, Kushina-chan will be going on a date with Naruto-kun, and we wish to speak with you about what you did on Saturday, she stated calmly. Anko and Hikari bristled at the news, but remained seated. They remembered what happened the last time they went after Kushina, and the warning that Naruto gave them. Why would he do that? Hikari asked. Amaterasu shook her head, because he likes her, probably even loves her. From the moment she showed up, she has been nothing but kind and supportive to both him, and us. Hana and I are here to find out just why you are so set on kicking Kushina out, she replied. Anko frowned and Hikari snarled lightly. She says she won't be his mother but then gives him that sort? Not to mention constantly cooking for him and watching over every little thing he does. I'll repeat it, how is that not mothering? Hikari replied heatedly. Hana sighed. You're right, that's what a mother does, she said, getting triumphant looks from Anko and Hikari. But, that is also what a wife and lover do. You have both overseen his training on different occasions. You're telling me you never micromanaged everything he did whilst he trained under you, she asked, looking to Anko specifically. Anko looked away, knowing she had done that exact same thing when she taught him. Then why didn't he take her out before then? Hikari asked. Anko perked up and glared back. Yeah, if he saw her as just a lover, then why has it taken him so long to ask her out, she added. Amaterasu sighed in exasperation. He was trying to be nice and take your feelings into consideration, but since you are so dead set against it, he decided to get you away and let you cool off without her around. He asked her out because you two are no longer there and he can treat her like he treats us without offending you, she said heatedly. Hikari and Anko were floored. He had been waiting for their okay to ask her out. They felt warmth spread through their chests, before it came crashing down as they realized they had kept Naruto from a girl he liked simply because of their own prejudices, however justified they may be. Anko sighed. Sorry about that. But I still think Kushina overstepped her bounds, she replied, getting a nod from Hikari, and sighs from their two friends. Hana shook her head. Look. This weekend, Kushina-chan will come by and talk with you. We will be accompanying her. Let's make this real simple, she said before leaning forward and letting her chakra and ki, which had been increased to near Umbu levels by her training with her new summons. If you try to harm her, or just ignore her, then we will be forced to tell Naruto-kun that you will not look past your own stupid ideals and he will have to use drastic measures, she said darkly. Hikari and Anko both frowned and leaned back a bit from the intimidating feral woman. We don't want to do that, so promise us you will hear her out without prejudice. Amaterasu added. Hikari and Anko shared a look before sighing themselves. Fine, they said. Hana and Amaterasu fixed them with the look. You know, the one your girlfriend gets when she knows you're lying? Yeah, that one. Hikari and Anko grumbled but added, we promise to hear her out without prejudice to the best of our abilities, they droned out. Hana and Amaterasu smiled. Good. Hana said smiling. It seems that things were looking up. Animal Kingdom, the restaurant 7:15 p.m. True to his word, Naruto had picked up Kushina at 7 for their date, which was going well so far. He had brought her a bouquet of roses, and a storage scroll of ramen considering the two ate ramen like children eat chocolate. She had been flattered by the personal gift and had kissed him on the cheek for it, not wanting to push her bounds too far. Naruto had been slightly saddened by that, but dismissed it and had proceeded to take her to his second favorite place to eat, and the only high-class restaurant that currently let him dine there. Apparently, they had done some renovating, and expansion, seeing as they had added sections for slugs, phoenixes, bugs, and monkeys. Naruto smiled at the matron, who smiled back. Ah, Mr. Uzumaki. Welcome back. The usual, he asked. Naruto smiled. Hello, and no thank you. May we get a seat in the phoenix section this time, he inquired. The matron nodded happily. Of course, he replied as he picked up two menus and motioned for the two Uzumakis to follow him. Kushina looked around, impressed with the artwork and the beautiful feel of the restaurant as whole. She noticed many shinobi eating here, and quite a few from the Abarame clan were in the bug section. They were soon seated and their drinks were taken quickly, the staff knowing who Naruto was. Naruto was dressed in his usual high-profile attire, a dark blue kimono with a storm raging in the background, along with a golden wolf against a full moon on the back. Kushina, however, had opted for a maroon dress, which oddly accentuated both her purple eyes and her red hair. It showed a generous amount of cleavage, having a V-neck, leaving her back open, along with a slit running down the right side so she could move freely. She wore red high heels to finish the look. Well? What do you think? Naruto asked with a smirk. He had noticed her wandering eyes. Kushina blushed in embarrassment. It's very beautiful. The artwork was very well done, she replied. Naruto nodded. Indeed, I was impressed when I first saw it as well. So, tell me a bit about yourself. I know you like ramen, you can cook, and you are obviously Jounin level at least, he said as he brought his arms to the tabletop and rested his head in his hands. Kushina shook away her embarrassment and cleared her thoughts. Let's see, I was, and am, known as the red hot-blooded habanero. I'm a master of my own kenjutsu style. I'm damn close to being a fuinjutsu master, second only to you right now. My favorite ramen is salt ramen. I don't like to fight if I can help it, even if my temper makes it seem otherwise, and I didn't really like my hair until I met Minato, she said as they decided on their dinner dishes. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Really? That's too bad, he said looking at his menu. I think your hair is beautiful, he added, not looking at her because of the slight blush on his face. Kushina's own face turned as red as her hair and looked away. Definitely got that taste from Minato, she commented shyly. What do you like about it? She asked, not looking him in the eye. Naruto chuckled. That's right, you weren't there when I was talking to Fuchan and the others. I guess I can repeat what I said there, he said, causing her to perk up and look at him. I just wanna make you lie down on a bed, with your hair down, and then cuddle up next to you, using your hair like a bed, he said, blushing. Kushina blushed. I see. What were you talking about in Fu's room? She asked, trying to get off of this embarrassing subject. Naruto chuckled. The girls were a bit uneasy at having such a well-endowed female in the house, so I told them that you are all special and attractive in your own ways. Granted, I only listed off things that were physical, but I could go on all day about your wonderful personalities, so I just decided to keep it short, he commented, causing her to smile warmly at him. I'm glad you are so loving, Naruto-kun. You really are a blessing to those who think they are beyond forgiveness, she replied softly. Naruto shook his head. Not at all. I am the one being blessed. Blessed by your affections, all of them, which I have done nothing to earn, he replied as the food came to the table. As Naruto focused on the waiter, he missed the massive blush on Kushina's face. Does he really believe that? Or is he just that smooth? She asked herself. She looked closer at him and caught no lie, or deceit, perhaps it is a bit of both. But, that doesn't matter, she thought as she, once again, smiled warmly at Naruto. He deserves it, and I'll be damned if he doesn't get all the love he deserves, she thought, before mentally sighing, looks like I'ma have to beat some sense into Hikari and Anko though. Oh well, let's just make sure Naruto-kun is happy for the night, worry about them Friday, she thought. Naruto finished his dinner and gave Kushina a serious look. Say Kushina-chan, he said, gaining her attention, what do you think of renaming Tsunami no Nami to something like Seiryuga, Fang of the Azure Dragon, he asked. Kushina tapped her chopsticks on the plate, thinking about it, before smiling. I like it, she replied with a smile. Naruto smiled back. So it's okay, he asked, gaining a nod from his date. Thanks Kushina-chan, he said happily. Kushina just kept on smiling. The two spent the rest of the night in a comfortable silence. Soon, they were headed back to the Namikaze estates. As they walked through the gates, Kushina turned and pinned Naruto to the wall. She swiftly smashed her lips into his own, surprising him, although he didn't stay that way for long. They continued to play tonsil hockey for a good 5 minutes before breaking for air. Kushina smirked at the flushed man. There's some important words I say only to the men who compliment my hair. Do you want to hear them, Naruto-kun? She asked softly, her breath tickling his ear and neck. He nodded dumbly, not really sure what was going on. I love you, she whispered before kissing him again, gently this time, but with no less amount of passion. They broke again, and Naruto had a goofy look on his face, causing the redhead to giggle as he looked too cute. She traced his whisker marks, causing him to purr out loud. Naruto blushed slightly. As much as I like this Kushina-chan, I think we should get home, he said. Kushina nodded. Fine. The date was good, Naruto-kun. Would you take me on another once the exams are done? She asked brazenly. Naruto smiled softly and kissed her chastely. Of course, Benahim-chan, he said as they began to walk inside. Once again, he missed the blush spreading its way across her face. Unknown location, Thursday, early morning. Orochimaru smirked evilly at his lieutenant, a large muscled man by the name of Ueo, no last name. He was just as beastly as the men he would command. He had dark brown, almost black eyes, with black hair that fell shaggily around his head. He was a bodybuilder, and could easily match Matogai in a strength contest. He wore black cargo pants and a gray shirt, with black combat boots. Do you understand your orders? He asked. Ueo smirked fearfully. So, I take these soldiers, go into the forest of death to one of your old bases, find these 2 babes and make them my bitches, he asked. Orochimaru nodded. Sounds good to me, my lord. I will set out right away. I can't wait to have those bitches moaning my name, he yelled as he took off. Orochimaru cackled. Soon, I will kill you, Kyuubi, for meddling in my plans. Ueo will weaken you, and I will have the chance to strike a blow where it truly hurts in the final exam. Ku, he said, with a dark gleam in his eyes. Next day, 6 p.m., forest of death surrounding Naruto's lab. Kushina was currently approaching the lab on her own. Amaterasu and Hana had opted to stay behind and finish up Fu's sprucing for her date with Naruto, but they would join her within the hour. Her spirits had been high ever since her date with Naruto-kun, which had ended rather well, and the girls had all squealed at how romantic it was when he made that comment about their love. Fu, while still a bit wary, had actually blushed deep red at that and was seriously considering joining the bandwagon if that's how he thought of his girls. Yujito and Hana had shared a look. Fu was already on board, she just didn't know it yet. Kushina landed in the clearing leading to the lab only to immediately jump back and dodge a strange hulking creature that landed where she was just a moment before. She glared at the creature, which looked around stupidly before turning its head towards the small door hidden in one of the trees and advancing. Kushina took this moment to unseal her katana, happy that she had suspected she may need to fight Hikari and Anko, and observed the creature. It was large, obviously used for muscle and not speed. To put it simply, it looked like an overgrown gorilla, easily larger than the average man, with no fur and thin beady eyes, a large sunken nose, and sharp jagged teeth. Its arms were the size of a large tree trunk, with fists easily large enough to bury a man in one shot. Its legs were short, but stocky. She narrowed her eyes and took notice of its thick hide. Well, looks like I've got my work cut out for me, she thought as she silently assumed the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu style. She was not a master, but she was proficient with most of the attacks. She jumped into the air and descended with great speed, putting her whole being behind the attack. Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu, Ryu Tsuzan, Dragon Hammer Strike, she yelled as she drove her sword into the beast's head, splitting it cleanly in half. Kushina stood and took notice of her surroundings, before dropping into her own Kenjutsu stance. She was surrounded by at least 30 more of those monsters. Great, even more of them. What are they doing here? She mentally asked. Iwao smirked from above. Kami is blessing me. Not 2, but 3 women, he said happily. He turned to the leader of the drones down below. Beat her up, but don't kill her, he ordered. The hulking monster nodded dumbly and jumped down, ready to follow the orders of his leader. The leader grunted to his drones, who nodded, and began to advance on Kushina. Kushina scowled, until she heard a very surprising, and welcomed voice. Katon, Kitsunsum. Fire release, Fox's Claw. Hikari yelled as she raised her hand, encasing her hand in fox fire before enlarging the fire to an Akimichi size, and slamming it down on one of the drones, slicing him to ribbons with the giant claws. Doton, Yomi Numa. Earth release, Swamp of the Underworld, Anko yelled as she caught 2 of her own monsters, causing them to sink and fall into the swamp, before it closed up, killing them. Kushina smiled softly as the 2 girls landed beside her. Thanks for the help, she said. Hikari and Anko gave her a slight glare. Don't be mistaken, we still don't like your actions, but if you die, then we can't judge you. Until you talk with us, you have to live. Hikari said. Anko smirked. Besides, if you die, then Naruto-kun would be sad, and we won't make him sad a second time in our lives, she said before rushing forward and attacking more of the beasts. Hikari smirked and gave a howl before diving into the fray, her claws alight with fire as she shredded the monsters into bits. Kushina shook her head before smirking. If you can't beat M, join M. Let's rock, she yelled as she too dove into the mass of enemies, activating her wings and becoming a fiery maelstrom of destruction. Iwao scowled from his position in the trees. The grunts were worthless. They had been fighting for over an hour and couldn't even land a hit on these women. He growled in annoyance as he watched the 2 redheads demolish nearly 20 of his soldiers, as the purple-haired one continued to either poison, sink, or turn the remaining monsters into porcupines. He flexed his muscles and started channeling chakra throughout his body. These girls were strong, but he would have them, one way or another. Animal Kingdom, same time, approximately 7:15. Naruto and Fu arrived at the restaurant, much to the maître's surprise, and were quickly seated in the bug section. Naruto noticed the nervousness, and hidden anger, coming from Fu as she looked to the other people in the area. It confused him, and he resolved to find out just why she was acting so strangely. They quickly ordered their drinks and Naruto turned to Fu. Naruto, once again, wore his high-class kimono with the storm and wolf on it. He was not one to spend much on expensive things, so he had only 2, and liked this one the best. He took in Fu's apparel and was pleased with his girlfriend's/mate's choice in preparing his date for the evening. She wore an orangish-red kimono with a pale green obi, both colors accentuating her natural look. They had foregone any makeup, seeing as Naruto preferred a natural beauty anyways. The kimono was parted at the top, showing plenty of her, now large, cleavage, however she seemed to be uncomfortable with it as she continuously shifted her shoulders. Her hair fell naturally, her hair clip gone from its usual place. Naruto focused on Fu and gave her a concerned look. Are you alright? He asked softly. Fu looked over to him and flinched slightly. I'll be fine. I'm just not used to being in a place with so many humans, she commented, still shifting nervously. Naruto raised an eyebrow. Do you want to go somewhere else? He asked. Fu shook her head. It's fine, Naruto-kun. Let's just enjoy dinner, she said, trying to smile warmly at him. Naruto smiled back, but frowned as she once again began to look around like someone was going to pop up and attack her. He sighed as he motioned the waiter over. May we place our order to go? He asked, getting a nod from the confused waiter. Good, then please return in 2 minutes for our order, he said, before turning to Fu, who was looking at him with a slightly annoyed expression on her face. What did you do that for? I said I'd be fine, she practically hissed at him. Do you know what you want? Naruto asked, ignoring her question. Fu glared at him but nodded. Good, please order, he said as the waiter walked up once again. Fu humphed and ordered, getting angrier by the second. Naruto nodded to her and made a clone, ordered his own food, and grabbed her before disappearing in a shunshin. Hidden waterfall, same time. Fu turned and glared heatedly at Naruto. I asked what the hell you did that for, she screamed at him. Naruto frowned. You were not relaxed, you were not fine, and I will not stand for my date to feel threatened. Tonight, you are important, nothing else, he answered. Fu swallowed her words at that. Naruto's face softened, as a clone appeared and laid out a blanket and a candle. Now would you please tell me what's wrong, he asked softly as he sat down on the blanket. Fu stared at him silently for a moment before her shoulders drooped and she sat in front of him. I don't like humans. The people in Takigaku always treated me harshly. I was never considered human, and for the longest time, I believed that. Until Nanabe opened up to me and really began to be my friend, I isolated myself from the people, still do really. I was forced to be a kunoichi, I never wanted that. But, the people would have been outraged if their weapon was not trained. I hate humans, she said venomously. Naruto frowned again. That's pretty harsh. But that doesn't explain your nervousness, he replied. Fu shook her head. I am not comfortable around humans. Your mates, girlfriends, and family are different as they live with two other jinhiriki. I just can't relax around them. I'm so used to being treated like an animal that I don't let my guard down in crowded places, she said softly, her head down. I am 18, Naruto. I've never been affectionate with anyone, all the men in Taki consider me worthless or a whore. I've never been given the chance for love, or even lust. Shibuki-sama tried to help, but he is not romantically interested in me. He's more like my older brother, she explained, causing Naruto's eyes to soften more and more. I just want to feel like a woman, and tonight, I was so nervous meeting you, then all those people. I can't. She said, sobbing softly. Naruto moved quickly, grabbing her hand as she rose to leave. Don't go anywhere, Fu-chan. You are here, with me, tonight. I won't sleep with you, if that's what you're asking, but I will try my best to see that you see what I see, he said softly, as he pulled her close and began to stroke her hair. Fu sniffled. I'm sorry. I just don't know how to act around you, she replied. Naruto chuckled, a deep rumbling in his chest. Tell you what. I want you to relax and take a deep breath, he said, causing her to do just that. Now breathe in. Breath in, and out, he said, causing her to breathe out. Good, he said softly. Now, I want you to sit back, and talk about yourself, your likes, dislikes, hobbies, anything you want to. If you can make it through the night, I'll do anything you ask me to, he said, smiling warmly at her. Fu blinked away a few tears, finding herself much calmer after the breathing exercise. Anything, she asked, getting a nod from Naruto. She took another deep breath, and began to tell him of Shibuki. Forest of Death, same time. Kushina and Hikari finished off the last enemy just in time to see Ueo drop in front of them and charge. They quickly decided to dodge the muscled man, and were happy they did so as he shattered a tree trunk with one punch. Kushina looked to Hikari. Dodge, she asked, getting a very enthusiastic nod from her kitsune-like partner. They both decided to use speed against power and charged their enemy. They worked in tandem, surprisingly well, as they used one another's attacks to feint and strike, never dealing a lethal blow however. Ueo jumped back, smirking at the girls. You are good. I am happy that Lord Orochimaru sent me to break you, he said, grinning evilly. Kushina frowned. That snake fucker will get it when we find him. As for breaking us, good luck with that. You'll never get the chance, she yelled at her enemy. Hikari smirked. For once, I agree with her. You'll never get the chance, she said as she looked over his shoulder, causing his eyes to widen. Anko descended from the tree and sunk her fangs into the man, jumping free as he lashed out with his arm to try and knock her away. Anko smirked evilly, his blood dripping from her fangs. I've just injected you with a nice amount of poison, you'll be dead in 3 minutes, she said confidently. Ueo scowled before smirking crazily. He began to laugh long and loud, as his body began to transform. It took on a dark gray color, with shuriken markings at random spots on his body. His muscles seemed to expand, and the wound on his shoulder healed up. Excellent. I haven't had someone push me like this in a long time. I'm going to enjoy beating you into the ground, and then forcing your bodies into submission, he cackled insanely. The three girls shared a look, before nodding and taking up their respective stances. Sorry, only Naruto-kun gets to enjoy our bodies. Anko said. Iwao growled and charged forward, with speeds matching Rock Lee on crack. Luckily, the girls were just as fast. Unfortunately, they had to begin trying to block some of his attacks as he was too fast for them to dodge completely. This, of course, was a bad idea, which Hikari found out too soon. She had executed a feint attack with Anko, only to be hit with Iwao's left arm. Luckily, she threw up her arms, but she could feel the bones in her arms fracture in several places from the impact. Kushina, being opposite Anko and Hikari, noticed this and immediately dashed forward, intent on saving her lover's first mate. She met Iwao's second fist with her sword, cutting deeply into the skin, and causing him to roar in pain. The three girls beat a hasty retreat, gaining some distance between them. Kushina turned to Hikari. Are you okay? She asked. Hikari nodded. I'll be fine. Wince, let's just kill this bastard already, she growled out. Anko smirked. Agreed. What do ya say to a little tag team? She asked, gaining devious smirks from her fellow Naruto lovers. Back with Iwao, he growled as he felt his skin finish repairing. He didn't have much longer in this form, so he rushed towards the girls, only to find an injured Hikari propped up on a tree. How sweet, they decided to save themselves and abandon you to my mercies. Don't worry, I won't be gentle, he said darkly as he advanced, being stupid enough not to check his surroundings. Hikari smirked as Kushina burst from the ground, her katana gone, as she attacked him fiercely. No one attacks my friend and gets away with it, bitch, she yelled as she tried to launch the surprised man in the air. She slammed her foot into his chest, lifting him off the ground, and setting him up for the next step. Anko phased into view beside Kushina and smirked. Doton, Chikyu no Kabushi. Earth release, Earth fist, she yelled as she slammed her fist into his stomach, forcing him into the air. Hikari smirked this time as he finally took her in, and paled. Katon, Daikaryuin Dan no Jutsu. Fire release, Great Fire Dragon technique, she yelled as a massive dragon made of blue fire slammed into the cursed man, turning him into ashes. The three girls sighed in happiness before looking at one another and smiling brightly, just as Amaterasu and Hana landed. Hana looked around, and sweat dropped. What just happened? She asked. Kushina sighed and shook her head. Hikari-chan has some damage to her arms, let's get inside and we can talk there. Besides, she said eyeing Naruto's first lovers, I think we won't have a problem anymore, she continued. Hana and Amaterasu blinked in confusion, while Hikari and Anko both shared a look that said, maybe we should give her a chance. Hidden waterfall, same time. Fu had regaled Naruto with tales of Shibuki, and he listened quietly. After nearly a half hour of storytelling, Naruto smiled softly. It sounds like Shibuki-sama would be someone I'd be happy to meet, he said warmly. Fu smiled. Definitely, she replied happily. Naruto's clone had already arrived with their food, and the two had eaten, finishing mere minutes ago. As much as I like hearing about Shibuki, I want to hear about Fu. What does she like to do? He asked softly. Fu blushed and looked down. I like to watch a waterfall, especially at sunset or sunrise, when the light hits the water just right. It makes the waterfall look like molten gold, she said, shyly at first, until she got excited at the end. I like to train, try new jutsus, and murmur, she said, getting shy at the end. Naruto raised an eyebrow as his eyes got a devious glint. What was that? I didn't hear you, he said. Fu blushed a deep red. I like to dance under a waterfall, all right, she said, embarrassed. Naruto chuckled. I'm sure you're a very graceful dancer, he replied, causing her to look away, still flushed. What about you? She asked. What does Naruto Uzumaki like to do? Naruto smirked. I like to train, cuddle with my girls, howl at the moon, study seals, and a multitude of other things. But, my favorite thing to do, he said, still smirking as she connected with his eyes, is to spoil my girls rotten. I was always at the bottom of the totem pole as a kid, and I now have the money to give my lovers anything they want and more, and it makes me happy to see them spoil themselves rotten, he said, smiling warmly. Fu giggled. That's very irresponsible of you, she commented, although she liked the sound of his favorite thing to do. Naruto chuckled. Maybe so, but I believe it is getting late, and we must be heading home, he said, with some sadness in his voice. Fu caught his eye, as she fidgeted. You promised me something, she said softly. Naruto nodded, turning to face her fully. Indeed I did. What is it you want? He asked. Fu looked him in the eye, staring at him for a good minute before becoming a blur of orange and green, and slamming her lips into Naruto's, forcing him onto his back as they made out furiously. They broke apart, panting for breath. Two things she said breathlessly, as she rested her head against his chest. First, promise me you won't let me go back to Taki, she said softly, almost whispering, with need. Naruto stiffened slightly, but smiled. I promise, he replied, causing a smile to spread across her face. Good, she replied. You made me feel more human tonight than most of my life combined. You also made me feel more feminine than ever before, she said softly. Second, I want you to treat me like you do one of your lovers tonight. Not the sex, but I want to share your bed, she whispered. Naruto blinked in surprise, before smiling warmly, and kissing the top of her head. As you wish, Baguheim. Bug Princess, he whispered back, as they disappeared from the blanket. They arrived at the house, and Naruto quickly stripped to his boxers, climbing under the sheets, and turning away from Fu as she too stripped to her underwear. She crawled into bed and tapped his shoulder. He turned over only to find himself spooning the back of Fu's body. Good night, Naruto-kun, she whispered as she began to fall asleep. Naruto smirked and snaked his arms around her. Kissing her head good night, he too drifted off into the peaceful realm of slumber. Naruto's lab, after fight. The five girls quickly took their seats, with Hana aiding Hikari's arms in their healing so they would be fine after a few nights or so. Anko turned to Kushina, you surprised me tonight. I didn't expect you to stand up for Hikari-chan so quickly, especially after what we did. You have an hour to argue with us, she said, going with the preset time the two women had agreed on when they were informed of Kushina's visit. While Hana and Amaterasu frowned, Kushina nodded, very well. I will say my piece, and leave you to judge. I'm not going to bother arguing with you two about my actions. Naruto-kun accepts them for what they are, and that's all that counts. You two are very close to his heart, being the first two women to truly love him. When you said you would give me a shot, but didn't really try, you really hurt him, she said, causing the two girls to frown and look away in shame. We didn't mean to. Hikari said softly. Indeed, I know that. I will no longer cater to you, and neither will Naruto-kun. You know this. He has not separated you from him because of me, but rather, because you two need time to think rationally, and not with just his best interest in mind. He is trying to teach you to look for the truth in actions, and not be blinded by your own feelings. I'm sure you would figure this out eventually, but I am not going to stand by while he distances himself from you two, she said, shocking the girls present. Why not? Anko asked curiously, the battle earlier having formed a bit of trust between the girls. On our date, you know what Naruto-kun said to me, she asked, getting negative nods from the four girls. He said, I am the one blessed. Blessed by your affections, all of them, which I have done nothing to earn. Now, you tell me this, did he not earn each and every single one of us, she asked, getting nods from the girls. She continued yet again, he is a wonderful person, and an even better man. You are the basis for that man, and I wish to see him continue to grow, and be by his side as he grows old. So, I'll leave you with one question. Doesn't he deserve all the love he can get, she asked, before getting up and leaving in a shunshin. The four girls hung their heads, that hit far too close to home, and even Hana and Amaterasu had much to think about.